Seem to be able to oppose one existing. So I just like, all right, let's stop doing it.
That's why you're clever. Let us take it all.
I remember how it felt. It felt pretty good.
We don't bump it.
6 to 1.
I'm waiting for this. We're having a test. That looks good. Marta, can you see this? Okay. Could everyone take their seats, please? I'm going to call the meeting to order. May we have the roll call, please? That's next.
Councilmember Cruz?
Here.
Vice Mayor Wolter?
Here.
Councilmember Brigham?
Here.
Councilmember Turner?
Here.
Mayor Bagby?
Present.
And Student Liaison?
Here.
Eden.
Great. And actually, now we have the Pledge of Allegiance. And Eden, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And may we have the report out of closed session?
There's no action to report out of closed session.
Great, thank you. And conflicts of interest declarations, are there any?
I have 2.
Okay. And you'll remind us when then those come up? Okay, great. Agenda review, are there any requests for reorders or changes or deletions?
No changes, Mayor.
Great, all right. We'll move on to public comment. Any person wishing to speak to the City Council on an item not listed on the agenda may do so at this time. Members of the public have the right to speak on any items on the Council agenda during that item. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council is not allowed to consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda. Each person wishing to speak must go to the podium when advised by the mayor and speak directly into the microphone. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes unless additional time is authorized. Would anyone like to come forward for public comment at this time? Go ahead and please put your name on the notepad and give us your name for the record.
Shirley Davis. Good evening, council members, staff, and the mayor. I just want to commend Mayor Bagby for including communications that she received. It was put into the packet that we see tonight. I think it's a really good idea to let people know, the public especially, to know what other residents are thinking about. What are their concerns? What are their issues? And I can't tell you how many times I've seen or heard in the city council meetings where I have received so many communications about this issue, but nothing on paper comes forward. So, you know, it could be a matter of persuasion that really is not there. So I think it's good to have those communications, whether it should be emailed to you or a letter. So I'm hoping that this will be the practice from now on with the City Council, and I thank you.
Anyone else have any public comments? All right. Well, seeing none, we're going to move on to proclamations and presentations. And a proclamation for Officer David Haas. Come on down. going to read the proclamation in full, and the chief is going to present it to you, and I'm sure that the paper and other folks will want to take pictures, so I'll go ahead and get started. Now, this is a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Cloverdale presented to Police Officer David Haas for his dedicated service to the community of Cloverdale. Whereas Officer Haas began his career as a police officer for the City of Cloverdale on January 4th, 1999, and whereas Officer Haas has excelled in providing the highest level of service to the community, enhancing the safety and quality of life for our citizens, and whereas Officer Haas held the position of Field Training Officer, or FTO, for most of his career, training 16 former and current police officers, and whereas Officer Haas completed over 1,600 hours of advanced officer training, and whereas Officer Haas has served as acting sergeant from January 2006 to August 2006, and whereas Officer Haas held the position of range master, instructing officers in the correct use of firearms, including duty weapons and rifles, and whereas Officer Haas also trained officers in weaponless defense techniques and tactical communications, and whereas Officer Haas was recognized as the Police Officer of the Year for 2006-2007, and whereas Officer Haas received 45 letters of commendation, including the Mad Heroes Award for 2001, 2003, and 2004. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the City Council of the City of Cloverdale does hereby proclaim its appreciation to Officer David Haas for his numerous contributions to the City of Cloverdale during his over 19-year career with the Cloverdale Police Department. Be it further resolved that I, Melanie Bagby, Mayor of the City of Cloverdale, along with my fellow council members, do hereby acknowledge the dedication and significant contributions by Officer David Haas on behalf of the citizens of Cloverdale. Thank you, David. And if you think you're going to get out of saying a few words, David.
This on? I just want to publicly thank Officer Haas for all the years of service. He's one of those employees that you wish you had a whole department of, and he really has a big heart and did a fantastic job for this community. So everybody in this community should be very thankful to him for everything he did. And we wish him much success in your future endeavors. We'll miss you, but we know you're going to be around all the time anyway. So.
Thank you, Chief. I'd like to thank the city manager and city council. It's very kind, and I really appreciate all the support that you guys have given the Cloverdale Police Department over the years. It means a lot. I'd like to thank my wife, Renee, my daughters, Megan, Lauren, my father, Bill, and Carol, for all the time we had to in Christmas, and all for being here, his friendship.
You would like, Vice Mayor Wolter?
Thank you. David.
It was brought home to me that it's not how much money you make when you retire and, you know, what you own, it's the love in the room of the people who worked with you, and that was just palpable that night. So I just want to thank David for his service and for being an example to our officers and to, you know, our citizens. So thank you very much. Anybody else have anything to add? If not, we are unfortunately going to move on to other items. So the second item under proclamations and presentations, we have a library update from Reese Foxon. As soon as we have the screen for everybody and as soon as we have Reese up at the front. But take your time.
It does.
Have faith.
It's actually Robert Parmenter, who is the branch librarian, and I'm supposed to talk into something? Is this better?
Microphone. There you go. And you can pull it down there, Reese. There you go.
Better?
I think Robert's going to have to take it in hand.
Move it up. Okay. Anyway, Robert is the new branch librarian, and he and I are going to be doing the presentation together tonight. I'm going to start with the general, and he's going to go to the more specific. As you may know, I've been commissioner for the library from Cloverdale for 4.5 years now, and this year I happen to be the chair. And how do I make this go? what do I do? Somebody. Can I use that? Ah, okay. Oh, small detail. Technology obviously is not my thing. Anyway, so primary thing that has been happening this year is, all of you know, we passed Measure Y, and that gave us 1 cent for every $8 you spend in taxes here in Sonoma County to the library. So it's not much, but it made a huge difference in what we can offer you. One of the things we had to do with this, because we knew we were going to be expanding hours, and we needed to get to a place where we could expand the infrastructure as well, so we moved to a headquarters in Rohnert Park so we could increase the materials, and we had places for the trucks to come in that were convenient. Before, they would go down into a basement that I had to crawl over boxes to get to the different places in the basement, and these men were moving the books. 20,000 items a day traveled this county for the library, and they were moving them in a 6x6 elevator, and that they had to share with everybody else, into their trucks and in and out. So it was very difficult, so we definitely needed to move. We also bought a new hybrid truck, so we're working towards being more sustainable as we do it. We've increased our budget, programming budget 2.5 times with the Measure Y money, and increased the materials budget by 2/3. Now, they say, but one of the best things that's happened is we were able to increase the hours, and that was one of the main reasons we were asking for it, because not only do we have to increase our budget and, our materials and all of that, we had to increase the staff, and that is the largest part of our expenditures. And we went from around 150 to 250 people employed for the library. So we're not a small organization anymore. In doing that, we were able to open on Mondays, and we're open from 10 to 9, so we're open Monday evenings. We were able to extend the hours on Wednesdays till 9, so they're open from 10 to 9 as well. And we were able to extend the hours on Saturday to 6, from 4 to 6, so they're open from 10 to 6. In doing this, we had to hire the personnel, and next year we're looking at increasing Sunday hours, so everybody will have Sunday hours. Tuesdays and Thursdays nights are still a little in question, but we'll see what happens with that. And it's not just the frontline people that we have to hire. Somebody's keys are on the floor right there. It's not just frontline people we hire. We have to hire all the backline people that do the support for this. So it's no small feature. The last thing that I have to say is we have a new library director, Ann Hammond. She is from Lexington, Kentucky. She went there 8 years ago from Alameda County. Before that, she was in San Diego County. So she has a strong California base. She got her library degree someplace in Washington, D.C., around Washington, D.C., and went to work for the Navy in one of their science labs. That was her first job. Then she left the Navy, went to realize she needed to do public library work, went to San Diego, Alameda, Lexington, and now here. Lexington's about the same configuration we are. I have about the same number of branches, about the same number of people, about the same budget, etc. She went there in a very difficult time and was able to turn the library around, and now it's one of the better known libraries in the United States. So it's really good. And so she will be starting, I think it's March 11th. And we're really looking forward to it because we've been over a year without a library director. Susan Hildreth, who's been our interim director, this last interim director, because we've had 2 others too, but this last interim director, fantastic, has stabilized things, so Ann will be coming into a good, stable environment, and we'll be able to move forward with even more. And I'm really excited, really excited. Anyway, so I want to turn it over to Robert. He will tell you about the branch and what's happening there. So, Robert, take it away. Yeah, literally.
Yeah, you might have to pick up that mic, Robert.
Is that all right? Okay.
There we go.
So hi, everyone. My name's Robert. I'm the new branch manager at Cloverdale. I started about almost 4 months ago now. It's been really wonderful. So as Reese mentioned, in large part due to the Measure Y funding, we're able to now do a lot of amazing things at Cloverdale, and I just wanted to highlight some of those. So first of all, if you look at the screen there, that's a picture of some of our various staff members. Myself, the branch manager. So on the picture on the bottom left there, to my right is John Kotzner. He's our children's librarian. Christine Braccolini is one of our library specialists. Cami Funk is our library associate. And then Adrian is one of our subs. Then in the pink up there, Donna Romeo is our teen librarian. Linda is one of our subs, and Kat is one of our associates. So we also were just able to hire a full-time library specialist, Brianna Herod from Healdsburg, and she's been a great addition to us as well. So it's really nice because now we're fully staffed, so we're able to actually get out in the community more and provide more outreach, and we've been able to bump up our programming, and it's really been wonderful so far. So Cloverdale Library, we have total volumes of about 28,200 different items, and we have access to the rest of the holdings in the Sonoma County Library System, all the materials through Mendocino County Library and Lake County Libraries. So those three combined, we really have a nice, robust collection that can be accessed with a library card. Our circulation to date this year, well, in 2018, was almost 61,000, which was a substantial 13% increase over the year before, so that's really cool. We made 327 new cards, which is awesome. It means we have new people coming into the library and accessing the services. We've really been trying to get out in partnership with the local schools. John and Donna have done an amazing job getting out there and reaching out. We had an educator night in fall of 2018, and we had an amazing turnout with teachers from all over the neighboring areas coming in and learning about our services. And we're now offering both student cards and educator cards. The student cards allow students to check out books and not have to worry about late fees. And the educator cards are similar. They don't have to worry about late fees. They're also for an extended 6-week checkout. So that's really nice for teachers, homeschooling families, people who can really use the materials. We've also been offering homework help lately. We have tutors coming in to tutor students in a variety of subjects, and we've been offering SAT prep coming up, things like that. And we have also been offering a lot of new online services for students who can't make it into the library but still want to use resources from home, like Britannica Online. We have different resources for students who want to learn a foreign language or get tutoring at home online as well. So I wanted to highlight a little bit of the increased programming that we've been able to do with the funding. So at the very top, we had a Spanish story time. We had 55 kids and their families come and join in the fun. We've been hosting bilingual story times every Wednesday, which have been really well attended. There's also photos of the Frida Kahlo paint party that we had, and that's on-guard fencing there in the middle. So we're having a lot of fun in the library. We also had a marionette show come in, which had over 50 children, which in the past was a surprising number, and now it's becoming almost commonplace. Had multiple programs since then that have topped 50 kids, which is really cool. We had a really neat program called the Triad Truck recently from the San Francisco Bay Area. It was part of their Discovery Museum, and it had a variety of hands-on engineering projects that kids could participate in. It was really neat. So. And then the Measure Y money has also really helped us boost up our technology that we're offering inside the library. So this is highlighting some of the different things that are either coming or have just made their way to the library. So we have hublets now, which are tablets that patrons can use in the library to access the internet, some of our digital resources. It just kind of lets you, instead of sitting at a desk using the public computers, you can pick up a tablet and sit in a comfy chair and enjoy the library that way. We also have hotspots that are going to be coming, which will provide wireless access that patrons can check out and use at home. So if you don't already have online access, you can check out a hotspot and get access that way. We also just got a new digitized microfiche reader, which is really nice. They replaced our old clunky one. And we just got a 3D printer, which is really cool as well. So we've been having a lot of fun with that. We printed a little model Grammy for our latest Grammy display, and we printed a little flower pot for a cactus that was donated to us by a patron, and we're just having fun with it. So we also got some serious upgrades to our forum room just this last week. So we now have a better sound system. We have a really nice interactive display for presenters, and we have a really nice projector. So we're going to be able to host some really good stuff in the future. So we also have a remodeled office that's coming in the back. We were really cramped before, and we're going to be getting some new furniture in, and we're going to have actual cubicles for the staff, so we won't have as much of a crunch like we did before. So that's what's going on at the library right now, and I just want to thank you for your support, and you allow us to do what we do and make it possible, and we appreciate you very much. So hope to see you all in the library, and thank you.
I'm going to ask that if the council has any questions or comments, if you'd like to, while we've got Robert and Reese here. You guys have any questions, please?
That was a wonderful presentation. It's great to see how the funding that was provided was able to be put to use in 12 months. And you guys have really shown the commitment to the community and making sure that everybody has access to educational materials as well as fun and other amenities. I think it's fantastic.
I'll just second that. Wonderful work.
Well, Reese, thank you for all the hard work you do. And Robert, welcome to Cloverdale.
Marta?
Welcome to Cloverdale. And Reese, I look forward to working with you. I'm going to be a liaison of the library.
I'm looking forward to that. I didn't mention one of the things we did last June, and that was pass a resolution in support of undocumented workers or people here in the county, residents. And it was important to me because I think we needed to make a statement. And I'm glad Cloverdale was a part of all of that through me. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks for doing that. I just have a couple of comments. That was a great presentation, and it really shows that you're thoughtfully and productively using those funds. So we really appreciate the report out. And just so that you know, Robert, I'm on a couple of regional boards where we use the meeting room at the library, so I really appreciate the new screen and possibly the sound system, but I do have a request. Every time we start a meeting and I want to say the Pledge of Allegiance, somebody has to bring up an app on their phone. So if you might want to think about putting a flag in that room, that would be great, because we do like to take the oath before our meetings. And I just looking forward to going back to the library, hopefully in the next week, and just checking out all the changes. So thank you so much, and thanks for the appreciation. Does anyone from the public want to come up and have any comments or questions at this time? And just, if you two could just stick close, just in case.
I'm Jeannie Cox, and I'm also on the board of the Friends of the Cloverdale Library. And I can't tell Reese and Robert how much we appreciate all the work they're doing, and seeing the changes in the library is just wonderful. So thank you both very much, and to the staff.
Does anybody else have any more comments? And Ray, welcome back. Great. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so we will move on to item number 3, Chamber of Commerce presentation. I believe that's Nina.
So you are right there.
City Council, Mayor, staff, friends, family. Eden, yeah. I'm Nina Hanchett. I'm the director of the Cloverdale Chamber of Commerce, and what I usually say next is it directs me. Ron Pavelka, our board president. We have board and assistant tonight, technical assistant. got some board members in the audience. I'd like to just briefly introduce them. Kelley Voss, Janess Brewer, and former director Robin Wilkerson. Thanks for coming, lending support. So we put together a list of accomplishments since the last time we came together so that you know what, if you didn't already know what the Chamber's doing, we'd like to specify for the audience. We have worked together to solidify a relationship with the city of Cloverdale as their marketing and promotion arm. We were asked to do that about 18 months ago, and the board, the director at that time and the board put together the Experience Cloverdale campaign. That is the umbrella that we are using for our marketing and promotion platform. And just some of the things that under that umbrella that we're doing, we are, for the past several months, we've been delivering new resident bags to every new resident, whether they bought or rent a home in Cloverdale. And the bags that we deliver, we hand deliver them. They will include a letter from the mayor. It did include a letter from the previous mayor.
It's on my work plan.
I figured it was on your list of things to do, but as I said, when you can get to it, that would be great. A letter from Ron and I as the Chamber of Commerce. We also have some information about Cloverdale in California. We have the CPAC program when it's available. We have the Experience Cloverdale map, the dining guide, a brand new shopping guide that's just been out for less than a week, coasters that say Experience Cloverdale where you can sip, taste, and toast, Reveille promotional information, and a newspaper. So hopefully it allows us to welcome people to our community and also get a sense of what we're all about here. This year, actually right around Friday night, actually it was a few months ago, we have worked on the directional signage downtown for businesses so that the old ones have been taken down and the businesses have put new ones, we put new ones up, and we'll maintain that on an ongoing basis. Those are the signposts at First and the Boulevard. One of the other aspects of our agreement with the city is to market Cloverdale, and in doing that, we have accomplished several things. First of all, our Experience Cloverdale campaign celebrated its first anniversary in June. We accomplished that with coasters and ball caps, t-shirts, window placards, and advertising both online and in print. We executed our first TripAdvisor buy from May through September, which targeted day trippers from the Bay Area and Mendocino, and the information that we got from TripAdvisor is that we performed really, really well, 3 times better than their average. And we targeted day trippers because we really don't have enough places for people to stay in town. I think we have, at last count, 168 rooms. So we thought that would be great. When you're done with Cloverdale, Geyserville, Mendocino, come and see us. We developed and have on hand a Cloverdale Dine and Drink Guide. It has been revised twice. The 3rd revision is underway. It pretty much has everything from McDonald's to Trading Post. And the 3rd revision will include our new burger restaurant and a coming soon placeholder for Pear, which is going to be here late spring, early summer. We developed a shopping guide with everything from CVS to Voss Signature Vintage. So people that come here, people that live here, people that visit here will be able to, in one trifold, look and see what we've got available. And we have a lot when you sit down and put it all to words. Oh, did I miss a video? Oh, thank you, Ron. We developed a 1-minute video for Experience Cloverdale that was played before each of the films at the Alexander Valley Film Festival this past October. We also just put together a 30-second video. Tried to put it on the laptop for tonight, but it didn't, for whatever reason, it didn't work. So, but it's going to be shown before the movies at the Clover. And I have it, it's available. If you have a flash drive, I can give it to you. You can see it. You can look at it on my computer at the office, whatever. And it's available for other promotional things that you all might want to do. You all too. It's really pretty. It's beautiful. Thanks to Nick Pavelka. That's the Citrus Fair. That's coming up. It is coming up. No, it isn't raining. It's cloudy, though. That's okay. So we're talking about our chamber and our business and our community and being the linkage that sort of keeps that all together. In terms of the chamber, in December of 2017, we had 171 chamber members. As of January 11th, when I put this together, we had 221. That's about a 30% increase in membership, which is, I mean, we're only as effective as the businesses and the community that we represent. So that's my goal, is to get everybody who does business here to be part of this magnificent organization. So some of the things that the Chamber has done to link to the community is we established a Chamber Advisory Board for people in the business community or retired in the business community, and they help kind of strategically help us and tell us what they think we ought to be doing and how we ought to be doing it, and lending their hand. Do you want to say anything more about that?
We have 4 fabulous members. You probably know most of them. Mike Nixon is on our advisory board, as Bonnie Wlodarczyk is as well. And we have Gianna, you know Gianna Volpe from Sawmill and recently opened Downtown Creamery. And we have Steve Cava, and Steve is a part-time resident here in town, but the experience he brings to our organization is he was the chief of staff for the last 2.5 mayors of San Francisco, and brings a wonderful insight, has given us lots of great direction. We just finished our annual retreat last Wednesday, and if we could do 1/10 of what he brings to the board, we would be over the top. But it's a wonderful advisory board.
Yeah, it's really, it is. It's fabulous. We have the participation of 2 juniors from Cloverdale High School on the chamber board. Eden was our one of our liaison last year, and we have two juniors this year, Liz Ruiz and Janet Martinez. And they come to the meetings and they weigh in and give us ideas and suggestions so that we link up with the high school. Super important. We have started our discussions of the development of a Hispanic advisory board. Last year we talked about what that could look like, who we would like to see serve on that board. It's a work in progress. Part of the outgrowth of that was our participation in the Latino Festival and Binational Health Fair in October, and we basically painted sugar skulls, which we'd done before, but not in conjunction with this event. The kids loved it. We did an office remodel, which if you haven't been into the office, it's well worth the trip. I think you probably all have. It's professional, it's welcoming, the windows are clean as of this afternoon. We wanted to provide a place that's welcoming for our business community, our visitors, our locals, and members and prospective members. So sometimes it's the only place a person will see in town. They come off the freeway, they stop and get information and head on their way, but we do always encourage them to please include Cloverdale in their vacation plans the next time they come through town. This is a picture that was taken at this year's Winter Festival, and we're going to talk about some of the events that we've done. None of this, this is all accomplished with lots and lots of volunteers. Probably about 1/3 of the audience helped on this one. Okay, so in conjunction with the Sonoma Tourism Ambassadors and the History Center and the Chamber, we extended an invitation for certified ambassadors to come to Cloverdale and enjoy what we called a taste of Cloverdale. 13 local restaurants, 2 olive oil purveyors, 6 wineries, 2 breweries, all participated. And it included a history center tour and welcome. It also was an area bus ride. We were going to do a walking tour, but it was 108 degrees, so we opted out. First ever, in my recollection, sidewalk sale was done in early August, and it was done both at Ferber Plaza and downtown, and as a participant in that, business was brisk. It was really fun, and anybody that wanted to participate could in any way that they wanted to. We're going to look at doing something like that again, like soon, but more on that to follow. We executed our 4th annual Winter Festival and tree lighting. Again, not done by the people that you see here alone. It takes a huge part of the community to make that happen. Tremendous success. One of the people that addressed the city council, I think it was in maybe early January or December, said that it was like a Hallmark movie, and it really was. It was lovely. The weather definitely showed up, so it was good. Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you. 25th annual car show, working on 26 for this year. More entries than we've had before. We developed a new website with online registration and payment options, which we didn't have before. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to participate. They love it. They come back year after year. We had a group of new people. We had the Porsche Club from the North Bay, and they said they'll be back next year with more Porsches. Okay. The restaurants and stores were really, really, really busy. Food vendors, we limited to those foods not available in the downtown core or within walking distance in order to support our brick and mortars, and they were busy. They were really, really busy. So, Ron, I'm sorry I got that out of whack. That's okay. We're a team. I think that's it. We did have a 30-second video to put in here, but we don't. But questions that you have?
Just a couple more comments, though.
Okay.
Can we do that?
I don't
For
know.
what's
Can
coming
we?
in the future?
Yes.
May I?
Yes.
Well, thank you. As a quick FYI, we've got quite a few things that we're working on for the future. As we mentioned, we just finished up our board retreat last week. But a couple things that are in progress. We met with the city last week, and we're working together with them on redoing the entrance signs to the community so they all have the same feel and look. And of course, we don't have one at the south end of town. That's still a jigsaw puzzle, but we're working on some place so we'll have 3 signs when you come into town that will explain, tell you where you are and welcome you to town and have other bits of information. Nina, you mentioned we have some other brochures coming out as well in the next couple of months.
We're going to put together a places to stay.
Yeah, exactly.
Including our RV overnight places, our VRBOs that are in the city that pay TOT, and all the other places that people can stay. So we're working on that.
And lots more.
And lots more.
Great. Well, stick close. I think there might be some questions stick close. There might be questions from the council. So
perfect.
At this time, do you have some? And Marta, do you want to start? Do you have anything? No? Yes? No
Well,
question?
Just a statement, not a question. Nina, thank you for the job you do, and the board is fantastic. And
yes, it
and
is
Robin,
fantastic.
It's good to see you back as well, so keep up the good work.
Yeah, we're definitely, we want this to move in the right direction and do everything we can in our power to make that happen.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to wait now. Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that I do think that the office looks fabulous. You guys did a great job on the office.
It looks really nice.
It looks really nice. And if you're going to be working on the new entrance signs, the one that I did that is right by the Citrus Fair, I noticed that Cloverdale has gotten blasted by the sun, and it's not a really good.
It's hard to see.
It's not good. So maybe black or some other color letters on that. Feel free.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
Yes, please. If the consent calendar passes today, I'm very excited to become the liaison to Chamber of Commerce. One of the things I think have been very successful, just from my personal point of view, is the Experience Cloverdale campaign. I purchased a hat from the Chamber of Commerce, and I've been wearing it whenever I leave town just as a conversation starter, and it is quite effective. If the room is willing to entertain me, I have one specific story where I happened to run across somebody in Healdsburg who was from Cloverdale and saw my hat, and so we took a step aside and talked about how much more we liked Cloverdale than where we were at the moment. So anyway, I digress. I think the Experience Cloverdale campaign is working for both your members and people who live here, who shop here, etc. If you wouldn't mind, I thought you had a very thought-provoking conversation. I don't remember who it was with. It could have been me, or I could have just eavesdropped on it. But you're undergoing some changes with helping out your Chamber of Commerce members in their social media presence. And would you mind commenting a little bit on that?
Well, it's kind of in its early stages, but I met with a woman that does social media training and helping people get better at that. And so we're working on probably some brown bag lunches, but we're in the very early stages. There are businesses in town that you can't send them even an email because they either don't check their email or they don't have an email address or a website. And the social media presence is lacking. It's a great way to reach people.
Thank you for commenting. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Marta, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to commend the Chamber because we have two very dynamic Latina young women. And that is very stimulating for the community. One of them commented to me individually that she was beginning to feel as part of the community. That's very important.
That's super.
Thank you.
The way that
we have two very dynamic Latina.
they know what we would like them to do, and that's basically to be a link with the schools. And they recommended Janet and Liz, and as they recommended Julie and Eden last year, it's been really solid. Thank you, Marta.
Well, be sure to, when you're done with when you're done training your interns this year, be sure to send them to us for next year. So yeah, it's like clearly
Yeah, it seems to work, right?
Clearly, it works really well with all. I just wanted to commend you on the job that we've seen. It's just been transformative in this past year. And the Winter Festival was, it was amazing. I mean, it was like a Hallmark card. I'm going to try to make sure that we don't schedule a business meeting for that afternoon and nearly miss the Christmas tree lighting, because as members of the council we're otherwise engaged. But other than that, I certainly hope that the weather cooperates for future events.
I do too.
It was just fantastic. And then I think that I would be remiss if I didn't mention that certain members of my party we're interested in seeing more food. So feed the masses next year. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
And just a comment to that. One of the things we discuss all the time at the Chamber at our board meetings is we will continue to support our brick and mortar stores, operations in town. So as far as food goes, we will do everything we can to send people to the businesses we have in town. If in fact during a certain event there's not something that's available, that we will then at that time look at other food availabilities. But we're here for our businesses, and we're not looking at bringing in somebody from Petaluma or Rohnert Park or Ukiah to serve food when they can go to Papa's or any other place here in town.
Policy. Yeah, I'm sure that everyone supports that.
Just to tag on to that a bit, we do alert the restaurants in town and even outside of the downtown core that they're welcome to set up a pop-up or do whatever they can do to bring it downtown. So.
Well, great, good to know. Are there any other questions at this time?
Mayor, Council, if I can, just to highlight a few other things that the city has the opportunity to participate in a collaborative fashion with the Chamber Board and the Chamber Directors that they didn't mention in their presentation. As you know, this council has supported an increase in funding for the Chamber, and I just want to highlight that I think from staff's perspective, there's very significant value in the funding that you provide, and you get a lot of return on that investment. Some of the things that we as staff collaborate with the chamber is on a number of regional initiatives and also the Economic Development Board meetings where it's important that we have city representation there. There are times when it's very difficult for staff to make it to Sonoma. Nina has been very quick to step in and participate in those meetings and represent Cloverdale in our best interests. Some of the things that she's supported along with her board is working on the city profile, which really is an important document in terms of highlighting our demographic and financial information. Participating in the Economic Development Roundtable, which again is an important venue for supporting Cloverdale. Last but not least, the role of the chamber in supporting the Spirit of Sonoma County Awards and recognizing one of our very important businesses in our downtown community. Often, as Director Hanchett can attest, I often refer to the chamber as Team Cloverdale because we really do work together collaboratively on the economic development, community development side to really pursue business development in our community. And I think for the investment that we get a lot of return for that. And I just want to extend from staff a thank you to Nina and to Ron and the board of directors for the work that they do and their collaboration with city staff.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cruz, did you have another comment?
Yes, I had forgotten something very important, Nina and Ron. There are some members of the economic development in the county who are wanting to come and interview some of the business members. I will give you some dates so that you could help us
Sure.
organize that, and I'll probably talk to the library director so that we can reserve the room.
Great. Super.
Did you guys have anything more?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Stick close. I'm just going to open it up to the public and find out if there are any questions or comments from the public for Nina and Ron. There you go.
Thank you, sir. Madam Mayor, members of council, city staff, chief, thank you for just a moment. I too wanted to just express my appreciation to Ron and to Nina. My wife and I have been members of the chamber for the last few years, and yes, very much. We're very grateful, very thankful. You have, well, good. I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you, Nina. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions or comments? Uh-oh.
Alyssa Morash, Executive Director of the Historical Society and the Museum. Just want to compliment Nina and Ron and really their whole board since and Robin, of course, before that, but they are so collaborative. They've reached out to the History Center in many ways, and our board and I and all of us at the History Center are really grateful for that and really look forward to working with them in the future. So thank you for their board and our board, whole collaboration.
Is there anyone else? Right? I think he's just being gentlemanly and moving over. So then I believe that concludes your presentation. Thank you again so much and congratulations for a very successful year. And with that, we will move on to the consent calendar. All items under consent calendar will be considered together by one action of the council unless any council member or members of the public request that an item be removed and considered separately. Council members, do you have anything you want to pull? Members of the public, do you have any requests regarding the consent calendar? Seeing none.
Mayor, members
Yes.
of council, if I can, I just want to reference that on your dais is a revised attachment 3 to the resolution, which is included as item 7 in your agenda packet. What that provides is updated meeting days, times, and locations for council subcommittees. There were some changes just this week based on the change in council meetings from Tuesday to Wednesday that was necessary to update the meeting times and dates that was included in your packet. And what's included on the dais is the updated attachment to the resolution. So we just recommend that if council is so inclined when you pass item number 7 that you include reference to the revised attachment 3 in your dais.
Oh, you mean this?
This thing. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at it?
Madam Mayor, just one question. When is the council meetings changing to Wednesday night? Is it the 1st of February? February?
Vice Mayor Wolter, correct. Under item number 8 in your packet, it identifies, the resolution identifies that the first meeting of the council that would occur on Wednesdays would be the first meeting in February.
Okay, and we're going to do some type of a press release for the Reveille and Zoe so that everyone knows.
Staff can certainly prepare a press release notifying the community of the change in meeting dates.
So we're going to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll move approval.
Happy to second.
All right. Linda, may we have a roll call?
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wolter?
Aye.
Councilmember Brigham?
Aye.
Councilmember Turner?
Aye.
Mayor Bagby?
Aye.
And Enid?
Aye.
All right.
Already talked to Yave about that.
You want to deal with this?
I will if you would. Would you like me to deal with it?
Well, please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, we looked at that. I looked at the online calendar that I have and cleared it, and it looked like there was no confusion. And then I talked to Yave about it when he brought that up, and he said that there was no problem with moving a couple of them because there was only conflict in maybe 2 all year. The meetings for council are going to be from Tuesday to Wednesday, but the planning commission is going to stay, evidently, on Tuesday nights. So it won't be affected it will just be council meetings, not the planning commission. The time is going to stay the same.
Great.
You're welcome.
Since there are no communications, we will move on to public hearings in item 9, introduction and first reading of ordinance number 727, 2019, amending the zoning ordinance amendment. I believe that's Kevin.
Mayor, council members, Kevin Thompson, Assistant City Manager, Community Development Director. This is the introduction of a long-awaited tree preservation ordinance. I have a quick PowerPoint I'd like to go through and some suggestions on how we can move the ordinance forward. It's getting cut off. The project has been around for a while. In October of 17, it was reviewed by the Planning Subcommittee. They made a few suggested changes that are incorporated in the ordinance, as well as last November, it went before the Planning Commission where they had many insightful comments. We've incorporated those comments as well. So each of those, both of those inputs have been included in the ordinance that's before you tonight. This definitely the creation of a tree preservation ordinance is supported by the general plan through several policies, goals, and implementation measures. I know it's been talked about for a long time. There's a lot of support in our general plan for adopting such an ordinance. We are the last city in the county to have an ordinance, a tree preservation ordinance. So just to start out by talking about, what types of trees are protected, and I apologize for that being cut off. I don't know what happened there. Oh, you got it. Okay. So the trees listed here, all 16 of them, would be the trees subject to the ordinance, and I'll go through what that really means. Generally speaking, all of them are 24 inches at breast height, which means 4.5 feet from the trunk, the bottom, the grade, up. You would measure. If it measured 24 inches around at that point, it would be a protected tree, provided it was one of these species. Are you changing it, or? No, okay. There's also a provision in the ordinance to designate heritage trees. So those would be trees that could be protected that aren't on that list. There's a couple ways that could happen. A property owner could request that of the council. That would be a resolution. The other way would be that the council identifies certain indigenous trees that are unique to the area, perhaps associated with an historic figure of Cloverdale, things like that, So there is a way to designate heritage trees, and that's outlined in the ordinance as well. We're having a little technical difficulty here.
Maybe if you leave it in the other view.
There you go. Thank you. So just getting into what this ordinance does, I mean, at a high-level view, it sets up a permitting process so that people who want to remove trees that were on that list would have to go through this process. There are some exceptions to that. Emergencies, if it's clear that the tree is a hazard, a potential fall, things like that. Visibility obstructions, if it's in the way, starting to get in the way of an intersection, and also trees that are affecting public utilities, drainages, things like that, as determined by the Public Works Director as a hazard, could be removed without a tree removal permit. The tree removal permit, again, the trees on that list would be subject to that. Some of the things that would be required of the tree removal permit is an arborist report that would be generated by the owner of the home or the developer who wants to cut the tree down. They look for a few things in that arborist report: the health of the tree, the species, the size, the age, things like that. Also, proximity to other protected trees. If we allow one tree to be removed, will it affect other trees? And then we ask the arborist to sort of help us assess the value of the tree and what would be an in-kind replacement, even though we do have a formula for that. Other ways that tree removal permits could be granted is if the project is going to be before the Planning Commission or the City Council. If it's a larger project that includes the removal of trees, those would ultimately get decided and approved by the council or the Planning Commission, whatever the deciding body was. Smaller permits, like the homeowner who wants to put an addition on their house, things like that with a tree in the way, would be approved by the Community Development Director. The ordinance does provide a little bit of insight into findings that would be made. There's no practical alternative, and the project really could not be designed around the tree. Also, the ordinance provides mitigation, so someone who does want to cut one of the protected trees down has an option to mitigate the loss of that tree. If the tree was judged to be in excellent health by the arborist, it would be a 1-to-1 ratio. So just really quick, if the tree's 24 inches, they would have to replace 24 inches of new trees. So if it was 4 small 4-inch trees, it would be 5 of those. Would be one way that they could do that. They could also, and by the way, our city arborist is here tonight, so if we have questions later on about technical things on the trees, Hector is here. There's an opportunity for people to plant trees other places in town, and that was where our city arborist would come in, identifying locations for that. Also, it provides for an in lieu fee, which would be something we would have to come back to the council to establish. And there's a number of ways to do that. That would be if they don't have room on their site to plant the new trees, or for whatever reason they just want to pay the fee. That fee would then be collected and used for us to plant trees throughout town. The ordinance also provides, and a lot of this does happen in the environmental review, but it just kind of reiterates that. It provides guidance on how to handle trees that will be preserved during large development projects. Things like, designing around the trees, keeping grading equipment from underneath the trees, protective fencing, things like that to really help guide the way we will protect trees that will be preserved. Again, that's covered a couple ways through this arborist report and the ordinance, as well as through the sequel review that typically comes out as well. Again, safety, keeping things out from underneath the tree is very important. You don't want the roots to get compacted, and no grading. We have a recommendation tonight. I just want to take this opportunity that I did meet with Councilmember Cruz today to discuss the ordinance, and she had a lot of good points about suggested changes. Those mostly related to timing of when people would be obligated to plant replacement trees, some other technical things as related to the emergency tree removal, expanding that a little bit. None of the suggested changes really are substantial in changing the ordinance. If the council is okay with it, we would like to go ahead and make those changes and bring the ordinance back for the second reading at the next council meeting, or a very near future council meeting. Or alternatively, we could make the changes and bring back the ordinance for a council review with Councilmember Cruz's suggested changes. So if you're inclined, we'd ask that you introduce and waive the first reading of the tree protection ordinance with Councilmember Cruz's amendments. And that
Would you
concludes
be able
my...
to, could you read them out for us, or did you include them in one of the
They're
many
not
handouts?
included. A lot of them had, she, I think rightly pointed out that there was really no timeline in which, and that was the bulk of those, so those would be, you know, I was thinking that might be handled when we issue the permit, but I think it's better to spell it out here. Another was under the exceptions, and that timing is peppered throughout the ordinance. There's little suggested places where that could go, about 3 or 4 different places, and I've marked those down. Also under exceptions under the public utilities, when trees are interfering with public utilities, there's some expanded language there to include sewer laterals and sewer lines. Other than that, that's okay. Go ahead.
Did you have a recommendation, Kate?
I just would recommend, not to delay things, but if you're going to make changes, they need to be exact upon first reading.
Yes.
Because you all need to consider the exact language and approve it on first reading. Second reading, nothing can be touched except like a clerical error. So.
How about we go ahead and have a public hearing and take input from the council, other members of the council and the public, and then we can bring this back at a future meeting. Does that sound? Okay. Does that sound reasonable? So, is that it for the?
That's it for the presentation.
Okay. So at this time, I'll go ahead and open up to the council for any technical questions. So Marta, since you were the instigator, I'm going to let you get started.
Yes. Also, it has to do with what is a commemorative planting. And rather than saying significant community member, I wrote just say historical.
Okay.
Because that leaves a lot of room for, also the fees are to be determined yet, and replacement fee should be paid at the time of the application. I think the timeline should be throughout. And also, I wanted to know, and perhaps this is a question for Hector, do we have a town inventory of historical trees or protective trees in Cloverdale?
Actually, Hector, you want to come up front, because I have a feeling we're going to have a couple of questions for you.
Mayor, Council, if we can just take a moment to introduce Hector Galvin. Hector is our Parks and Landscape Maintenance Lead. He's also a certified arborist, and he's the city's arborist.
Great.
Councilmember Marta, just to answer that question, we do have a list. Of course, once it's just the beginning of, like Kevin mentioned earlier in the presentation, you know, most of our neighboring cities have done this, you know, a long time ago. So it's time for us to get it going. But we do have a list. But once this tree ordinance gets implemented, then we can add to that list, especially with our beautiful trees that we have downtown.
Yes, I also would like to make sure that we have somewhat of a map of where these are located, and
Yes.
perhaps down the road, we need to establish some community education about trees, so that
Yes.
when they go ahead to do landscaping, they know what kind of trees it is that they have in their backyard.
Right, I agree 100%. The more knowledge the community has of our trees downtown, the better. And I'm willing to help with that. As far as the education part of it, you know, as far as planting goes, or anything I can help out with, more than happy to help.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Wolter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just two things. First of all, I don't think there's really any hurry to bring this back. We've been dealing with this for, what, 10 years? Trying to get this patted down. So I'd like to see the corrections made, then bring it back, and we'll start over again. On page 4, heritage trees, I believe it is page 4, it says 2 ways for designation, and it's private property owners protected trees established by a city council resolution. Rephrase that for me, because it's not clicking what that means.
Vice Mayor, if I can jump in on this, and I was in a position to bring the original draft ordinance forward. This particular language, it provides councils with the opportunity in the future, should they so decide, to establish a particular tree type or variety as a city heritage tree. Just as an example, and I'm by no means recommending this, but if, for example, all of the orange trees in Cloverdale were subject to blight and there was a few remaining, the council could at that time decide that that was a heritage tree that you would want to see preserved and protected. And by designating it as a heritage tree, it would then fall under the tree preservation ordinance. So it provides the opportunity for the council to establish by resolution trees that they designate as heritage trees, which would then give them the protection of the ordinance, which if they didn't, then they'd just otherwise be allowed to be cut down at the discretion of the property owner.
Okay, I guess it's just a little confusing when it says private property owners protected trees. It's almost like they want to have a designation of a tree on their property that they want to protect in perpetuity, so, but it's fine.
So that clarifies it for me as well. So,
Madam
sorry,
Mayor?
go ahead.
Yes, I also wanted to make sure that it's clarified that the arborist, that if a private person, owner of a private property wants to make sure that they have the permission to cut the tree, the arborist cannot be the city arborist. It has to be somebody independent from the city.
Yeah, that was brought up at the planning commission as well, and we.
But it's not spelled out on the ordinance.
Okay.
This side. This is anything? Okay. Well, guess I'm going to have to tell you to speak for yourself because this item came up. This is long before 2017. This was on the Planning Commission work plan when I was on the Planning Commission, and I do want to see this move forward. So I think what we'd like to see is take these recommendations, and I'd actually had a couple of comments about making sure that the fees are balanced and that the overall goal is that we are preserving our canopy and increasing our canopy, that's the overall goal of the ordinance, and make sure that that's incorporated. So those are the comments. Would it be appropriate for me to go ahead and take comments from the public at this time and go ahead and get any input from anybody who's interested?
Mayor, staff would recommend that you continue to conduct a public hearing tonight and get input from the community on the draft ordinance. That will provide important feedback to staff in terms of any other further revisions other than those that were recommended by council this evening.
So then you could continue.
We'll just continue it
public hearing
to the next, continue it. Absolutely. So at this time, I'm going to open the public hearing, public comment on this item. Would anyone from the public like to come forward and put in your 2 cents as we have already?
How about 1 cent?
How about 1 cent? We'll take it.
I mentioned at the Planning Commission that with the recent fires, CAL FIRE is now suggesting that you have a clearance around your house.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have a property with a heritage oak and it's kind of close to my house and I'm really worried about fire, I should be able to protect my house and be able to cut that down. So I think we might have some language incorporated in this where you need to check with CAL FIRE.
Yeah, do we have anything on that, Mr. Thompson?
I did speak to our fire chief, not CAL FIRE, and his sense was that, that maybe that could fall under the exceptions under emergency situations. I think we would still want an arborist or someone versed in that type of analysis to give us something that would justify what we would be approving. But I think that we were thinking that it would fall under exceptions under emergency situations.
So should there be language in there to say that they might want to contact? CAL FIRE has a website, and it's been in the PD as well, about how you need to protect your house. So, I mean, the information's out there, and all the arborists would have to do is to work with CAL FIRE, whether if Cloverdale doesn't have that information, then go to Sonoma County.
Oh, that's a great comment.
Thank you.
Did you have anything you wanted to add? Sorry.
I could see an informational packet supplementing the ordinance as something as maybe a way to,
Like best practices.
to give people the resources they need to find out what is available to them, but in a sense of language within the ordinance, I think we should do our best to keep it as something that's definable rather than advice, personally.
Any other members of the public have any comments? No? Okay, seeing none, I'm just going to bring it back. I have a final comment, but I'll wait until I hear from my other council members. Anything else on this? Anything? Okay.
No, I'm good.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is safety first, and I think that goes without saying. So it's a really good first draft, but I think what I would like to see is, first and foremost, is protect trees when and how you can. This second kind of overarching goal being protecting and expanding our tree canopy. We know it's not unusual for us to have 100+ degree days, and this is a natural, woodland environment, and it's part of why we love living here, is preserving. It's part of our quality of life. So if we could incorporate what we've heard tonight with some of with the council comments, and we'll bring it back at a later date.
Mayor, was there consensus on adding specific language about fire to the emergency situation?
Fire protections, include fire protections, or language about.
It's a really hard one because if you start clearing.
You need to talk into the mics. We've got to have a public meeting.
That's a hard one to figure out how to exactly verbalize, in that if you clear off everything 200 feet away from every house in town, then you're not going to have any trees at all. So I think involving an arborist on that kind of decision would be critical.
Okay. Did you have anything more?
I appreciate what Ms. Davis is bringing to our attention, and what I want to see is the two be coupled.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Not the same document.
Not the same or the same? Sorry, you lost
So,
me.
I mean, if I were to come in and apply if I were to even entertain the idea of wanting to look at a tree on my property, and you were to provide me with the tree ordinance, in that same packet of information that has the black and white, what I am allowed to do, I also would like to see the resources that were noted by Ms. Davis, to where you can then go and look that up as can I call it an appendix? Can I call it an attachment? It's just something married to the document, but not the document itself. And if I'm using the wrong language, I hope our city attorney can help clarify my meeting.
Madam Mayor?
Sure, certainly.
Yes, we discussed this also, Kevin and I, and there are parts here that refer, for example, to guide for plant appraisal. And I suggested a link or a publication. So perhaps there we could have a link.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
To the same thing, and it doesn't have to expand. The ordinance doesn't need to expand on it. You just have a link to refer to what would be
Or an appendix.
an appropriate tree to have in your house, or how to protect your house and so on. But I don't think that the council should be responsible for the protection of your private property.
Oh, and Gus has a comment.
So I'm understanding what you're going for is we don't need to repeat the guidelines of CAL FIRE or the local fire officials in the ordinance, but reference them as an acceptable source for staff to have you fit under one of those exceptions.
It's a source that we feel that as a city we are willing to, and forgive me if I'm going to use the wrong word, endorse. We are willing to endorse this source.
So public fire officials or some phrase like that. I appreciate the idea to link to a certain thing. The only problem with that can be that this is something you want to last for 10, and yes, you can amend ordinances, but we'd want to make sure we have language that says, or similar publications or something like that, because they might change that. The link might be gone, or, we don't want to ever make it so specific that it's impossible to meet the requirement.
Or similar.
Yeah, so go ahead, Gus.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just two thoughts on that. I would think if a homeowner wants to take a tree down that's close to their home, they could surely call the fire department and have somebody come out and take a look and give an opinion on whether it's a hazard or not. And then secondly, I know some insurance companies, if you have too many houses close to your home, they'll make you cut them down, or they'll drop your insurance policy. So I think there's resources that a homeowner can go and get, letters from their insurance company that they want the tree down, or an opinion from the fire district. So I think we could also recommend that.
Okay, great.
So.
Great. Anything else, Mr. City Manager? Well, we've closed. No. I'm gonna, and since there seems to be an interest in some comments, I'm gonna go ahead and invite people to come forward at this time if you have further comments. We haven't closed the public hearing yet, but I would like to follow some decorum. So, and if you could just state your name for the record and be sure to write it on Linda's notepad there.
So my name is Cristina Lepe Duarte, and I'm here. I'll write it afterwards. But I'm a longtime City Cloverdale resident, and I do want to get some clarification. So I do understand the importance of the tree protection ordinance with the residents. And on the page where it showed the trees that were protected, anything greater than 24 inches, does that also apply to the oak trees at City Park? And the reason why I ask is because there's been a lot of concern about the safety of branches falling that could be very hazardous and a liability for the city. And I want to make sure that that is addressed and heard. So if you guys can please comment on that.
Great question, so I'll leave that to staff.
Mayor, I can respond to that question. The ordinance will pertain to city-owned property, and as we introduced earlier, our city arborist, Mr. Galvin, he does routinely do assessments of all of our trees in our public spaces to ensure that they're maintained in a safe fashion. Unfortunately, oaks are subject to a number of things. During the summer, limb fall, and during the winter months, wintry conditions, and they do fall, and there is the potential for threat to life and safety, but we take every precaution to try to address those hazards by regular and routine assessments of trees, particularly those in areas like City Park. And in fact, we would apply the ordinance to ourselves. So if there's a need to remove an oak tree, we would see that as Public Works would coordinate with planning on a tree removal permit and appropriate mitigation, which is things we try to do now.
Great. Okay. All right. And any other comments from the public or any other questions? So seeing that, I'm going to bring it back to the council. Oh, come on forward and please state your name for the record.
Jeff Bagby of Cloverdale. I just want to make sure that there is a provision for AB 3250 from 1978, the Solar Rights Act, which guarantees the rights of solar installations that were installed prior to the planting of a tree. The intent is giving solar panel owners the ability to address situations where a neighbor's tree covers more than 30% of your solar panels if the tree was planted after the solar installation was put in place.
Okay, great. Can staff address that? I don't think that was in the...
It's not.
And I'm not 100% positive that the Solar Rights Act is still in effect, but for reference, it's AB 3250 of 1978. Okay.
If there's consensus, we can add some language.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, that was something I had thought of, but I know that just because of the timing, the hardwood trees might have trouble reaching that height. So, but it is, we really should construct this so that it's a durable ordinance. And if we could get some research on that and include it for the next go around, that would be great.
And redwoods.
Yeah.
Fast.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jason.
This is just a quick question that I had come up as a result of the previous comment regarding trees on city property. Mr. Kelley made a comment that, the city would then utilize the process itself. I think I remember that the language showed that private homeowners would be required to use a city arborist other than the cities. I just wanted to make sure that it clarified that we didn't write ourselves into a corner to where we as a city would not be able to utilize our own arborist if we wanted to address a tree on city property. So, thank you.
Somebody want to address that?
I don't believe that we're backed ourselves into a corner in that way. I mean, I think it's fairly explicit that a homeowner would have to hire their own arborist, but we're going to add a little more language based on Councilmember Cruz's comments. And if I see anywhere in there that I think we can add a little more language about the city arborist for public property, I can do that.
Okay. Did you have anything further? Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to know if it's appropriate for Hector to comment or for city engineer Rincon to comment on plans for the trees in 2nd Street Park.
Yeah, Hector, actually, would you like to just kind of describe, the assessment process that you go through and how you maintain the health of those trees, and
Sure.
the bay laurels in particular?
I was taking a bunch of notes when you're speaking out there, just to give you a little bit of, give you guys a little bit of background knowledge as far as all the work that goes into assessing the tree. For myself as a city arborist, just to give you some information, last year we removed a total of 13 trees from the 2nd Street Park. And the reason why we removed those trees is because, again, they were unhealthy. And after I actually got a second opinion from a second arborist before we removed those trees. So the last few years, the city has spent thousands of dollars to not only to assess and to make sure that our trees are, safe and for our kids and our community to use the park. Last year we spent, I don't have the exact number, but I think it was like $16,000 in tree pruning. And every year, a lot of effort from city staff and a lot of funds go towards, that park, especially since it's it's the focal park of the city, I think. And a lot of, and a part of it is because of the shade. So, like we mentioned earlier on the oak trees, a lot of a lot of work goes into those trees, but stuff does happen, and we're trying to do everything possible with the funds available to make it safe for our community. And I can give you some more information if you want to. We actually have some more plans to do additional prunings around the playground area, which happened 2 years ago. So a lot of effort and a lot of resources are going towards that park.
Thank you. Yeah. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll just go ahead and we will continue this to a future meeting.
I was hoping February 26th.
February 26th.
And I'll provide a red line version of all the changes and the clean version as well.
All right, it's a date.
Thanks.
All right, all right. We are going to be moving on to our next item, which is number 10, review and discussion of proposed updated draft cannabis ordinance and revisions.
I'm going to need to recuse myself. I have property that's zoned properly for cannabis, and I'm also going to recuse myself to save having to come back here and do it again on item number 11, because my home is right next door to the Cherry Creek.
Right, okay, we'll come and get you.
Okey doke.
All right. So we're going to move on to item 10, and I believe it's that City Manager Kelley.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. The item before you tonight is review of the commercial cannabis ordinance. The reason staff is bringing this back is at your meeting of November 13th, it was under the previous council's guidance that you provided direction to city staff. At that time, there were only 3 members of the council present. We obviously, at this point in time, now have two new members of council, and Mayor Bagby is present. At that meeting, staff, our council provided direction to city staff and as part of a review of the cannabis ordinance and the 9 issues that had previously been identified and considered at the September 25th council meeting. And so our goal tonight is really to go through that review process with the council and seek your final input and direction as we move forward in bringing the proposed revised cannabis ordinance through the process. So a little bit of a background here, and both Kate and I, your city attorney, are going to kind of cover a couple slides and give you an update on the key 9 issues that were discussed at the November 13th council meeting, some of which, just as a reminder, were combined into singular issues. So just as I mentioned, we just gave you an overview. We're going to review those proposed amendments to the ordinance, and at the end, we're going to seek your direction to staff. So by way of background, the council had held a number of meetings on the drafting of the commercial cannabis ordinance, and at your September meeting in 2017, the council adopted, or held a public hearing and adopted a negative declaration to comply with CEQA for the ordinance, and ultimately adopted the ordinance at the following meeting, September 26th, which put in place a commercial cannabis ordinance for the city of Cloverdale. At this time, that ordinance does remain in effect, and applicants for cannabis-related businesses can and have applied for city cannabis permits, except dispensaries, during this review process. The topics that were covered at both the September 25th and November 13th meetings included a discussion on events and festivals. At the time the ordinance was adopted, the ordinance did not provide any guidelines relative to how to consider or review events or festivals within the town or within the city. One of the other key issues was setbacks from schools, parks, libraries, youth centers, and residential uses. And there was an ensuing discussion after the adoption of the ordinance, resulting in a resolution that was adopted by the school board that provided some recommendations for the council to consider, and we brought those forward for council to discuss. Next up were in that intervening period between its adoption and the current time frame, there were some new state cannabis regulations as well as updates to license types. Those two issues were combined, and we'll discuss those briefly. In addition, staff brought forward a discussion on dispensaries and the permitting process, as well as the zoning and location of cannabis businesses, and in that context discussed some exceptions and waivers to those setback requirements. And finally, there was just some basic cleanup items and also a discussion regarding whether to prohibit certain personnel from holding licenses. So without further ado, I'll kind of jump in. Issue number 1 was, should the cannabis ordinance address cannabis-related special events? And the recommendation from council was to amend the ordinance to address cannabis events. And as such, there's language that is identified on page 30 of your ordinance that provides guidelines relative to temporary cannabis events. Most specifically, the draft ordinance in your packet enables the town manager to approve temporary cannabis event permits subject to adoption of guidelines. At this time, I just maybe take a brief recess and allow council to identify whether you concur with that proposed amendment or you recommend any further revisions to the ordinance to address cannabis events.
All right. So go ahead and start. Do you have any objection or concerns?
My only concern about the events is that, according to the state, it doesn't have the same requirements of setbacks and so on. But is it possible to still comply with the state and make sure that if we have these events, they do not coincide with school in session?
I'm going to take that, Kate.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. It can be part of conditions placed on an event permit. The way it's written, there's discretion, you know, that the permits would come to, I think we have it set up to come to the Planning Commission, I thought was the,
I thought we already addressed this, and we decided that
Yeah.
it would have to be when school was not in
we
session.
did talk about that, and so it was an understanding that would be one of the conditions.
It's not
Is it in
explicit.
the draft?
It's not in the
It's not in the
draft.
draft. Yeah, I think
What
that was
page
probably
were you on, Dave? 30?
Yeah,
bottom of page 30.
The provisions for special events is on page 30 of the ordinance. The ordinance is not specific in terms of providing the detailed conditions that may apply to a special cannabis event permit. Again, the ordinance would reflect to give authority to your city manager to develop specific guidelines and actually permit those, provide conditions of approval based on the details of the event.
There's also there's quite a few state laws that would apply to a cannabis event because there's laws on consumption and distance and things like that. So just a cannabis event where there's any consumption on site couldn't happen when school's in session. If it's within 1,000 feet of the school, that would be illegal under state law, and the state knows that, and they have to approve these things as well. So I'm comfortable with the way it's written, and that staff and the state would be taking care of detailed conditions that are necessary like that. If council wants to lay out that level of detail in the ordinance, you're certainly welcome to. There's other things that the security plan would address as well. They're required to have a security plan. We're not going to put all the details of what that is in the ordinance, but someone can also, these are appealable if one's approved and someone doesn't like the fact that an event was approved, then it can be appealed.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
I'm comfortable with the way it's written now.
Yeah, as am I. So.
Me as well. Did everybody hear me as well? Sorry, make sure I speak in the old mic here.
Madam Mayor?
Sure.
The reason I requested this is because there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of comments, and I feel that it would be nice if it would be totally clear to our community that it's not going to impact the schools.
Oh, well, that's why I have a question. When we've completed the application forms, will that be part of a public hearing as well, so people can give input on the requirements and the limitations?
That's really council's direction, how you'd like to see that be developed. You could, for example, refer that to subcommittee for a recommendation and then bring it back to council. And I think you can do that under general direction to staff that you'd like to review and approve any application or the draft application for future cannabis permits.
Would it be amenable to the rest of the council if we said we were going to direct this to the Police Finance Administration for review of the application forms and requirements?
So for the application forms, yes.
Yes.
Not for specific applicants.
No,
Okay.
no, not for the applicant.
Got
I'm
it.
talking about the application forms and what we're requiring,
Sure.
what our guidelines are. Does that have any consensus or?
Madam Mayor, I'm okay with that. I just don't want to see us get to the point where we're micromanaging every aspect of our cannabis ordinance. I'd like us at some point to get to the point where we pick the zoning where even the dispensaries can be. We lay out the criteria. We lay out the number of dispensaries that we're going to have. And if an individual comes into City Hall and he meets all the criteria, it's up to the discretion of the city manager to approve that or not approve it.
Well, we can discuss that when we get to that item.
All I'm saying is I just don't want to sit here and nitpick everything.
Okay.
But I don't have an objection with it going to the subcommittee at this point.
Well, this would be for the creation of the
events.
forms and regarding events. I mean, if we were to look at the forms, the questions, and the requirements, and then at the subcommittee level, and then bring it back for council approval, would that satisfy your concerns. Because what I don't want to see in the ordinance is duplication of language or duplication of effort. We don't need to muddy the waters because we already have state law that will govern a lot of these requirements.
Madam Mayor, is as long as the community is informed and is comfortable knowing, or perhaps we just need to emphasize in the paper and in other means of communication that we are complying with state law and that we're not just coming up with things out of the air.
Well, this will be part of the, if we move forward that way, it will be part of the public hearing at both subcommittee level, and it will come back to council. Does that sound like a plan for you? Is that what you?
I don't mind us putting the application to the subcommittee, but I think I'm in agreement with the both of you. I really don't want to over muddy this.
Yeah.
I'm
Let's keep it simple.
Yeah, I mean, let's get some data in the hopper.
And Madam Mayor, if I could, and not to just be a stater of the obvious, but this is a moving target for us. I mean, we're going to go ahead and approve an ordinance hopefully here within the next month or so. And you know what? A year from now, we may find components of it that just are not working.
Sure.
And we may have to bring it back and revise it. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So.
Okay. So that guidance on item 1, is that clear? And so what we're going to do is probably clarify. We're going to go through each of the items, and then at that we'll take public comment on the end. So maybe in your notes, just keep track. This is issue 1, and we are going to go all the way to the end, the bitter end. So does that make sense? Okay, so let's move on to the next slide, next item.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So as I indicated earlier, issues number 2 and number 7 were combined because of their interrelationship. This has to do with setbacks, most notably setbacks from schools, parks, youth centers, libraries, and residential uses. And the combined issue was also to assess whether to include language in the ordinance that provided for certain waivers for certain setback requirements. The council recommendation was to clarify the method of measurement for each of the cannabis uses, and there's language in the draft ordinance that specifically clarifies how the setback distance is to be measured. One of the things that the council discussed at the previous meetings during the review of the ordinance was the actual setback distances themselves, and the direction that was clearly provided by a majority consensus of the council at that time was to retain the existing setback requirements, but to do provide a process to allow for a waiver of certain setback requirements through planning commission review at a public hearing. And those updates are reflected in the draft amended ordinance. So in summary, the setbacks are proposed to remain as they were when the ordinance was originally adopted, though there is a process to allow for waivers of certain setbacks, and there is clarification on how the setback distances were measured. Yeah. So as an example, we have a table here. It just shows how measured, and the language in the most, I guess would be the most right-hand column is the language that was added to the ordinance under how measured that clarified how those setbacks would actually be measured by city staff.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that.
This is fine.
All right. Okay, we're 4 for 4. So we're going to move on to issues number 3 and 4.
Everybody still hear me okay? I'm like trying to make sure we, all right.
Okay, so throughout the ordinance, there was some cleanups made, as also some revisions to reflect the updates in the state license types. Those changes were made kind of throughout the ordinance, so that there wasn't a reference to specific license numbers because of the way the state now reviews cannabis licenses. At the council meeting of September 25th and the 13th, the full city council really supported adopting the ordinance to reflect those new state regs. that went into effect after adoption of the original ordinance, and they're reflected in the ordinance that's before you today.
We were, for months and months, we were dealing with the emergency regs, and then last week, the final adopted regs finally were made solid, they're done, they're adopted. So hopefully those will remain as is, we'll have some consistency at the state for a while, hopefully.
Okay, great. All right. Do you have any questions, or can you support this? Okay, great. And
Sorry, yes.
Councilmember? Yeah, all right, I think we're in concurrence.
Okay.
So,
Well, moving on to issue number 5, was a discussion about the number of dispensaries that are allowed and permitted within the ordinance, and whether there was any changes. The council recommendation was to not change the maximum number of dispensaries permitted, but have an ad hoc committee review and fine tune the RFP and selection process prior to open it back up for a second permit. So just for reference, the current ordinance provides for a maximum of 2 dispensaries, and in the revised version that's in your packet, it retains that maximum number of 2. But as this council's aware, only 1 dispensary permit has been issued to date, so there is 1 outstanding permit available that could be subject to a revised RFP process.
Okay. And the current ordinance does require an open application period and, a vetting and scoring process, and then for them to go back to the council. And as I mentioned last time, that's common where it's a competitive, you only have 2 here. So it's common that those come to the council, but it's up to council if you wanted to change the ordinance and allow, you could even make it a more vague language that said, that the city manager has discretion to come up with a process which may include, a competitive one, but who makes the decision, whether it be the planning commission, the council, or the staff, I think should be set out in the ordinance for clarity. Some cities do competitive, some cities do lottery. If you don't do either of those and you only set minimum quals and then take them as they come, you're kind of limited, I would say. And if you only have 2, you kind of have to do it on a first come, first served basis, and you might not end up being satisfied with who you get. So just some background on that.
okay. Vice Mayor?
I don't know. Do you want to move it to 3, or are we comfortable with 2?
I'm comfortable with 2.
I'm finding myself comfortable with 2 for right now.
Yeah.
And you made a good point yourself, Vice Mayor. In a year, we may relook at this.
Well, I mean, I say that, when we first started down this road, my impression or my thoughts were what they were going to look like. And I have to be honest with you, the one that I see now is just a beautiful facility. And if they all look like that, yeah, I'd have 3 or 4 in town. But I mean, they just did a fantastic job at it. And, the other, to the Aaron Gore's facility up the road there, it's also beautiful. And
It's not a dispensary.
I understand it's not a dispensary. All I'm saying is, there's no neon flashing lights.
Well, that's prohibited in state law.
Well,
So,
I
yes.
understand that. But, I mean, with the casinos, we started off with a grand casino being built, and it boils down to a tent on a lot. And so I'm quite impressed with what we're doing, and I'm receptive to more than 2, but we could discuss that later.
Do you have any position on this?
Well, I am comfortable with 2 at this moment, but I would be open for a 3rd one.
Okay. Yeah, I'm comfortable with 2 because based on the guessing that the state and estimates that were given by the state, based on per capita demand, we're actually pushing it at 2. So I would like to keep it with 2 for now, but like all things ordinance related, it certainly could be brought open in the future. So, all right. So do you have enough direction on this one?
I think we see a consensus to kind of keep it for the time being at maximum of 2.
Okay, and we can move on to issue number 6.
Okay, issue number 6. This was an issue that involves the land use matrix, which is Exhibit A to the ordinance, and sets forth the various cannabis permit types by zoning district. Council had quite a bit of discussion, and there was kind of a bifurcated decision that changed from your September 13th or September 25th meeting to your November 13th meeting, and this was an issue that we felt we really wanted to get input from this council on, because we're going to be taking this document through the process, and this is a key zoning discussion. So at the September 25th council meeting, the general direction from council was to eliminate the transit-oriented development zoning district as well as the downtown commercial zoning district from the land use matrix where a cannabis permit business would be allowed, with the provision that you include a grandfathering clause for the 2 dispensary applicants. At your November 13th meeting, that original direction was amended to reflect that there was a general consensus to continue to eliminate the downtown commercial zoning district, but retain the transit-oriented development zoning district as it was in the original zoning ordinance. I do want to point out that the proposed updates, latest updates, were not included in the land use matrix, and because that was a key area that we wanted to seek your input on tonight before this, and assuming you agree to remand this ordinance to review by the Planning Commission. So that's an item we are seeking your input on as the current council.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Cruz?
I'm comfortable with what had been determined in the past.
Which determination? Which past
in terms
determination?
of the TOD and the downtown allowing the dispensary. And I believe it was the medical dispensary in downtown.
I'm sorry, can you, I'm sure staff's going to ask you to clarify that.
Well, grandfathering the TOD and the TC.
Okay.
DTC.
Okay.
So if I understood Councilmember Cruz correctly, she's okay with allowing dispensaries and TOD as well as DTC, and I have to concur with that. I want to see that we create opportunities for individuals to have a chance. We have seen through demonstration that the individuals who do embark on these journeys that have done so far, not speaking to anybody else, the individuals who have done so far have done so respectively and with commitment to this community. I want to see that level of enthusiasm move forward.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with dispensaries being allowed in the TOD, and the one the application that's already in the downtown. I'm comfortable with grandfathering that in.
With the, specifically the one that applied to downtown?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
What didn't you hear, Michelle? Okay, so I'm in favor of the TOD allowing dispensaries and the downtown allowing the one that's grandfathered in already. The application, yes.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have to differ, and you guys are going to have to keep score. I think that we need a wholesale review of the zoning in transit-oriented development and our downtown core, and I would actually prefer to put any of the applicants on hold. I realize I'm in the minority, but I'm going to express a minority opinion because I think that we need to have a wholesale review and then revisit it. I know that our transit-oriented development zoning is not, it needs to be shaped up so that we are eligible for as many transportation dollars as we can possibly get. I know we're not there yet. I think that we need to revisit that and then look at how that's going to impact the surrounding zoning areas. So that's what I would prefer to do, but I'm clearly in the minority. So since you guys can count to 3 on this, I think you have your direction.
Well, if I could just clarify, I understand that the TOD needs a complete renovation. We really need to look seriously at that. But the one that's already in the TOD is grandfathered in anyhow. So rather than seeing
Well, it's up for discussion this evening.
rather than seeing folks have to wait and wait again while we do a whole recalculation of what TOD should include, I'm in favor of just approving it the way we initially did. Let the TOD allow dispensaries for now, and we could do away with it later. We're only going to have 2 dispensaries anyhow. So,
okay. Do you have any further comment?
Yes, I don't want to give a sense that you would start a business and will, in a year, say, okay, we're going to change the whole thing, and you're just going to have to get your investment and leave.
Well, that wouldn't happen. So
Okay.
if you start a business that's allowed currently, and then the zoning is changed, you're grandfathered in. So
Okay.
that's not.
I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Okay.
And then again, we have to observe how the business goes, what situations happen, and if that's going to be renewed.
Okay. Okay. Do you have anything else?
I do not.
And I think you brought up what my main concern is that if we decide that we need much higher density, if we need to incentivize mixed use, if we need to incentivize more residents, I think that's the issue that I have, is that then we have a business that is then grandfathered in, and so I think that's poor planning, and it's actually functionally it's spot zoning, and we need to be wiser with the decisions that we make, but that seems to be, I think you guys have your instructions, but we'll also, we're going to be opening up for public comment as well, and so, we may be influenced by what some other public has to say. And I know Kate's just chomping at the bit right now.
I just wanted to get some clarification. So Councilmember Turner, what I heard you say was that you are comfortable with permitting dispensaries in the downtown commercial as well as TOD? Generally, not just grandfathering in the applications? Is that, I'm trying to distinguish between
she's trying to keep
what
score.
we're going to keep, what we're going to do with the matrix, the land use matrix, and then what kind of language we use for the grandfathering.
My language was that I don't mind allowing it limiting to dispensaries with Cloverdale, with that being part of our previous discussion. I don't mind opening up the option for the downtown commercial district because it will have to go through design review, and we will ensure that it is pretty and it is conducive with the town. What I don't want to do is continuously reduce any opportunities within Cloverdale.
Okay, so got that. Okay, and Councilmember Cruz, you said you were okay with grandfathering in TOD and DTC. Does that mean you are not in favor of permitting dispensaries generally in those areas, or you're just okay with it for the 2 applications we've received to be grandfathered in?
I'm comfortable with the 2 applications we've received.
Okay.
And it would be open for revision once the permit has to be renewed.
The zoning would stay what the zoning is unless the ordinance goes back through something. And once you're in, we don't revisit the zoning. Once a business is in a zone, if that zoning changes to not allow that business in the future, as the mayor said, they're grandfathered in. The permit's a separate issue that's not based, once they're in unless they do something that requires a revocation. We can't do that from a land use perspective. Yeah. That's just not legal.
However, I do see in the ordinance that a business can start as a medical cannabis dispensary, and they can request to be a mixed-use dispensary. Is that what I understood in the reading? Like, for example, we have an application for a medical dispensary. When the time comes to renew, can they revisit if they want to stay only medical or that they want to also do recreation?
Yes, that's an operational issue. We allow all of this. We don't distinguish medical, recreational at all within our zoning. Any cannabis use is pretty much either or both.
Yeah, for Councilmember Cruz's benefit, one way maybe to think about it is if you grandfather in the DTC and the TOD, it only would be applicable to the 2 existing permit applicants. If you don't grandfather it in, those 2 applicants would not be allowed to proceed. If you are okay with the zoning district in general, it would allow not just the 2 applicants, but any other applicants that may be interested in applying through an RFP process that will be reviewed by an ad hoc committee. So it's there's kind of 3 potential scenarios there.
Yes. Okay.
I think from staff's perspective, grandfathering does create, can create an unusual scenario because it grants kind of rights to something that otherwise isn't going to be allowed to another business. And it's certainly permissible if you want to do that. But I guess from staff's perspective, it provides a much clearer direction. It's much clearer in the ordinance if council can agree to say it's either allowed in a zoning district or it's not allowed. It just creates a much clearer kind of regulatory framework, not only to staff, but I think to the cannabis business community.
Okay. Yeah. I would believe in grandfathering in the applicants. And just like Councilmember Turner, I believe that TOD and DTC should be included.
For future.
For future.
Okay. Yeah. Did you need a clarification from the Vice Mayor, or are you good, Kate?
Let me give it to her anyhow.
Go ahead.
So just so you understand, on the TOD, I just want to open it up in general for dispensaries.
Got it.
And the commercial downtown, if it makes life easier for the city manager and staff, I'll open that up for general as well. But I prefer just to have the one that's already applied grandfathered in. Let's face it, we're only going to be doing 2 either way at this point. Well, 1 more, I should say. So it's not like we're going to have an onslaught of applicants. So.
Okay. Great. Okay. Got it. Clear? All right. Let's move on to the next item, next issue.
Okay. The next item pertains to a consideration to include a provision in the cannabis ordinance, in essence stating that no elected or appointed official from the state or its political subdivisions, which would mean the city, may be a permit holder if their duties involve enforcement or regulation of cannabis businesses. The council recommendation, after there's a fair amount of community input on this, was to not amend the ordinance to prohibit elected city officials from receiving a cannabis permit. And therefore, the ordinance does not, draft ordinance in your packet does not include prohibitions for elected or appointed officials.
Okay. We're going to start with you.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm the one that actually brought that up, and the previous city council and yourself included, just pointed out to me that we're discriminating against a certain type of business owner. So I'm fine with it being taken out.
Councilmember Cruz?
I have problems with this because there's a lot of conflict of interest when you are making policy and you are engaged in a very controversial, which is today it's controversial, business. So I'm not comfortable with that.
Okay.
For me, I honestly believe that the term precedence comes to mind with this. If we establish a precedence over this particular item, whilst it is controversial, that would almost require us to assign a level of controversy to any new topic that came before us, the way I see this. I find that the information I received on when one must recuse themselves is the fair political and whatever the other P stands for.
Practices.
That's their way of trying to make it so we're not ones and twosing it. So to summarize, I would prefer this language not be included in our ordinance.
So I'd have to, I believe I concur, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure I do. In 20 years, no one is, this isn't even going to be an issue, and I don't think you should discriminate against people. In fact, I'd love to see people in the industry come forward and serve on our planning commission, serve on our council, and, you know, AB 1234 is very clear when you need to recuse yourself, when you have a business interest, and so I'd say we need to get more people serving locally and not discouraging them. So, all right. So you have your. I didn't mean to make a speech. Sorry. So do we have the guidance on item 8? Okay, let's move on to 9.
Item 9, I think, should be an easy one. There were some minor cleanup and amendments, again, throughout the ordinance. The ordinance that's included in your packet includes those minor cleanup and amendments, we didn't call them out. There was places where it referred to use permit, for example, where it was correctly corrected to identify it was a cannabis permit. So just minor changes throughout the ordinance itself.
I think we all support that. Are we good with that?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Great. All right. Moving on to the next steps then. Let's see. Well, actually, I think we need to open this to the public at this time. So hopefully everyone took good notes. If you have comments or questions, please come to the front, state your name and residence, and please indicate the item number, if you would, so that we can not upset our clerk and our attorney.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. I'm here specifically to address the item pertaining to zoning. I believe that was item number 6. Yes, Daniel Frankston from California Wellness. I am one of the members of one of the 2 outstanding applicants, and I too can count heads and count numbers as well. And I just had an inquiry of you, Madam Mayor. You indicated a desire to put everything on hold to review both the TOD as well as the downtown area, the zoning for that. Mm-hmm. And I understand from the discussions and also from the history, the basis for that as it pertains to the transit-orient district. Mm-hmm. And I guess the question that I have of you is there something that I'm missing with regards to the downtown area and why that too should be placed on hold with regards to the cannabis permit, or is it part of a larger plan?
Actually, I don't mind. That's clarifying my position, so I'm just going to confer with the attorney that I can clarify that at this time. Sure. Okay, sure. Yeah, great question, and hopefully I'll be able to explain this clearly and concisely. My concern was that so I'll take them separately. For transit-oriented development, when you look at the allowable uses and the requirements, they're just really not in line with what we need to do to prepare ourselves for Smart Train and to qualify ourselves for funding. And on reviewing that, I realized that the downtown also is pretty loosey-goosey. I mean, I understand that your use would have been upstairs from the, for lack of a better term, Antiques Uniques. Everybody knows what I'm talking about, even though it's not called that anymore. But it's kind of the Antiques Uniques building. But I find that in order to, protect the investments of the folks who have brought new businesses in, on like the first floor and the front-facing businesses, we're not really doing a good enough job we don't differentiate between those front-facing businesses and then our upstairs offices. And I feel like we really should tighten up that language before we move forward. So, and unfortunately, you were kind of a victim of my zoning hygiene, if you will. So I just felt like instead of something being grandfathered in an existing use, that we'd really just kind of, I wanted to clean up the language around downtown so that, we are encouraging pedestrian-oriented businesses to be on the front-facing buildings, and then our, offices and lighter traffic on, in the spaces that are maybe a backdoor entrance or an upstairs. And so I just wanted to clarify that before we moved forward with this. That was my intent. But I'm in the minority, so you're in luck tonight.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Erin Gore. I'm momming very hard today, so apologize. Just a couple points. I really commend you on making these clarifications. I think they're in line with what the community wants as well as what the industry wants. So thank you for that. Just some additional notes when you think about zoning. So a dispensary, similar to what would be in Cloverdale, sees between 300 and 350 individual visits per day. And that's data pulled from a similar town to Cloverdale here in Sonoma County. So if you look at the traffic that dispensaries can actually see, people travel to them from around the county. So I really think it's actually important to be in downtown commercial. I think it's the best place for a dispensary, quite frankly, because of that foot traffic that they create. So as you're thinking through the zoning, I would be happy to facilitate any type of road trips to other dispensaries to get a feel for what the traffic looks like, how they set them up, things like that, because I do believe that you'd be missing out if you zone out TOD or DTC in your ordinance.
Great,
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, Joanne Parker. I just wanted to follow up on a comment I made last spring, I think, and then also by email, just wondering if we can get a little more of the justification behind the distance between the youth centers and any kind of cannabis activity. I know that this Prop 64 had 600 feet between schools and cannabis activity, and youth centers and cannabis activity is the starting point, and you all have the authority to modify those as you see fit. I've seen quite a bit of justification as for the, the school-related distance, but I haven't really seen much on the justification for the decreasing of the distance between cannabis activities and youth centers down to 200 feet. It seems to me, as a person with a small child in town, that youth centers are a little bit, that includes parks, and I'm pretty sure I know where the justification lies, but I'd like to actually see that. And so those kind of facilities do seem to be a little less monitored than a school environment, so they're almost a little more exposed to the 300 visitors from out of town a day, or whatever the number may be. So I just want to make sure we are very clear about that difference between our local ordinance and Prop 64's starting point recommendation.
Actually, Kate, do you have anything for us on that?
That was a discussion had a long time ago, and council, I'm not sure I can adequately state the justification, but council was very comfortable with the 600 feet from childcare and schools, but youth centers, parks, libraries were sort of put into a secondary category. I'm not sure if it was just the sheer number of folks at the site, that kind of thing, or there was also a concern that I believe that you would start to eliminate almost everything in town, especially we looked at the map last time, that the 600 foot already creates, a very limited area. The zoning plus the distance requirements leaves you with very little available land to do these businesses, and so I think that was part of the justification, if I recall.
Okay, great. Okay. Anyone else from the public have any?
Shirley Davis. On November 13th, Mr. Addison from the school board recommended 1,000 feet from the schools. And he did this on an invitation from the city council to do a poll. And he brought that forward. I was really disappointed that because there was only 3 members that night, that there wasn't even a compromise. It was just like, thank you very much, 600 feet. So I beg the question that you never should invite somebody to bring something to you if you aren't going to give it any consideration. And I really do believe that we should at least compromise. 800 feet would be a compromise, but I believe 1,000 feet is plenty. We don't need to have children pass by and see this stuff all the time. If you want it, you can go out 1,000 feet and get it, okay?
Thank you.
Ma'am. Well, Shirley, thank you for your inputs. for your input. And you know, we did invite the school district to give an opinion, and they did come back with 1,000 feet. Just because they came back with 1,000 feet, it doesn't mean that we're going to change our mind and do 1,000 feet. We wanted input, and that's what we got. And that was taken into my consideration to leave it at 600. You know, if you haven't visited the center that Patrick King is doing, maybe you should stop by. They're not going to be walking by and seeing anything. I mean, it's a really nicely done facility. And just because we ask for a recommendation, it doesn't mean that we're going to, we just want input. We want information. What do they suggest?
Okay.
And we decided that 600 feet is fine.
Okay, well, with Patrick King, though, how many feet is that from the school?
How many what?
How many feet is that?
Probably a
That's out in
mile.
our industrial area on South Cloverdale Boulevard.
How many feet is it from what? The school?
From a school.
Oh, well,
Yeah, you're saying it's a
thousands of
nice
feet.
facility,
Yeah,
and it is.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
it's pretty far away, too.
Well, you got to understand that every facility that we approve has to go through an inspection process by the chief and by other entities to make sure that things are the way they should be. It's not, okay, you got your permit, go build some sticks and bricks and start selling. I mean, it doesn't work that way.
I understand the
Yeah.
issue I'm addressing, though, is the
Yeah.
distance.
Well, we ask a lot of people for their opinion. We also
Yeah.
take public hearing. And,
Right.
I mean, it's a decision we have to make.
So I just stated my opinion.
You did, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. Anybody else this time? Okay, so next steps. I'm gonna look, oh, we have one more. A late entry, welcome.
I was curious if the council would be.
Could you state your name for the?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just
My
because I
name's-
know your name, yeah.
My name is Jude Gibson. I was curious if the council would be providing any permits for micro businesses in the downtown corridor and the TOT area.
Okay, great. Actually, do you want to take that, David? You look like you're ready. Or Kate?
I don't have the land use matrix in front of me, sorry. So micro businesses, basically micro businesses, they're a business that allow 3, or you have to have at least 3 uses. You probably know that since you're asking the question. And what we did was look at the matrix and decide, and if a zone permitted 3 uses anyway, then they may have a micro business. So it depends which uses you're doing. But currently, I believe the way it is that a micro business operation is allowed in the industrial park and general industrial zones. And then I think we have revised the land use matrix to permit a micro business in this, was it the service commercial?
In general.
Mr. Kelley,
Service
yeah.
commercial.
Because we looked at it and realized, oh, there's 3 uses permitted. I think it's non-volatile manufacturing, delivery only, and nursery. So we added one more place where the micro business could be. So yes, micro businesses are allowed. Those permits don't come to council. They go to staff like all other non-dispensary permits.
And I'd just like to take this opportunity to point out that there was correspondence received by Councilmember Turner and Councilmember Cruz asking about establishment of the micro business cannabis permit within the downtown commercial zoning district. A copy of that letter is provided in your dais, will be reflected in the meeting minutes. And as Kate just mentioned, the primary reason why it is not permitted in the TOD zoning district is because, again, you have to have those 3 uses together. And the TOD currently is largely a residential zoning district. And therefore, to include those 3 components seem to conflict again with the underlying zoning. And so therefore, that's why it was not, when the ordinance was originally crafted, the micro business cannabis permit type was not identified as being permitted within that TOD zoning district.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay. All right. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. Okay. I think we're going to close the public hearing portion. Actually, you have a recommendation on how we should proceed, Mr. City Manager?
Mayor, Council, there's a couple of different options for you at this point. If you feel confident in staff in taking the direction that was received today, staff can make the appropriate amendments to the ordinance that's in your packet and pursue review of that ordinance for a recommendation by the Planning Commission, at which time, once that recommendation is provided, bring it back to council. And as part of that process, one of the things what staff would need to look closely at is the environmental document that was previously adopted by council and whether there's any need to amend it. Kind of my preliminary assessment is that we would probably, at least at a minimum, need to do an addendum just to clarify some of the changes. Therefore, that doesn't mean recirculating the environmental document, but bringing that back as part of a revised ordinance. Ultimately, we would seek commission's review and then bring it back to council for introduction and final action. Alternatively, if council so desires, you could direct staff to bring you kind of a clean line version of the ordinance and put it back on the council agenda for your review, so you feel really confident in it and its kind of final form before it goes to commission. So there's kind of two options for council to consider. We're confident either way you would like to pursue. If you feel like the direction you gave to staff is clear, we'll make those proposed changes and bring it through the process.
Vice Mayor, did you have a preference?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to see the clean version come back to the City Council before it goes to the Planning Commission, just to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed.
Councilmember.
Okay.
I agree with Vice Mayor Wolter.
Okay, and no pressure.
I find myself ready to send what we've amended to the Planning Commission, but I also come from a place of taking great pride in our Planning Commission, and I think their advice would be very welcomed and warranted.
Well, I'm going to have to be the third vote. I think I would like to, because we did give a lot of advice. Let's just take one more red-lined look at it before we send it to the Planning Commission. And then that way we know what we're asking them to do, and we know what they're getting. So I'd like to move forward. I'm seeing 3-1.
Hey,
sorry.
I'm okay with that. That's democracy.
There you go, democracy in action. So, okay, is that will that work for you? Anything else for us on this item?
No
Okay.
further action required at this item. The direction that council provided is very clear.
Great. I want to thank the public for all of your fruitful input. And at this point, I'm going to take a 5-minute recess.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do it, Kate.
Yeah, and ask her if she finished her did she finish her homework or not? Eden needs some coffee. Eden, are you still awake? Did you finish your homework ahead of time? Okay, good. So, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and come back. I'll have you report unless you want to stay for the unless you want to stay for the I'll just give you the option if you want to go after you give your report. Are you sure? Yeah. So if you want to stay, you can stay, but I know it's getting late, so. So you want to call your mom? I'm going to go through that. Okay. I'll be sure. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. So take advantage of it.
Chief Stewart, since I'm sitting next to you, okay, I need to clarify, okay? Yeah. This is salmon, all right? This is salmon, lightly cooked salmon, just the way I like it.
It doesn't look like that. I'll confirm that if anybody else.
You know the Works here in town? They got the barber shop there on the bar right by First Street. Anyhow, he's been in town here for a long time. He's been coming here. I come in after the day, coming up and shit. Keeps giving me signs. Jim, I'm not sure what you're looking at. This is salmon. It's a complete structure. Wait, it's grandson's haircut. Getting haircut by Wayne. He goes, whatever you gotta tell yourself. Never met him before in my life. Goes, whatever you gotta tell yourself. Really? How about you?
Pretty good.
Go stretch out a little bit after that.
Are we 5 minutes yet? Yeah.
We're just about there.
I'm good. I'll stick it out. You're gonna stick it out. Oh. Good for you. Okay.
Yeah. Who's the Everett? No, Everett was last time.
Everett last year. Tucker.
Tucker had an easy meeting last time. Here you are at the 4 hour.
Mayor, is it going to be until 11 o'clock? No.
Are we laying bets? That's a bad example for our student liaison. No, there's not much left.
Pick out the one you want.
Oh, don't think that.
I know, I just cursed myself, didn't I?
Bedtime? Bedtime?
No, I've been with this all night.
You're fired up. It's good.
That has the pack too. That one, because then I can. Yes. Okay. Okay, so.
Exactly. If it's not within a year, I have it here.
Oh, I know, yeah, so. Wait. Yeah, I'm happy to,
No time for homework tonight or nothing.
Here, page
it always goes like
143.
Yeah, Stewart's gonna get you out of school first.
was closed at that year.
Eden has finished her homework, is what I thought. Eden finished her homework and called her mother. If council wants to, or me.
Oh, okay.
And that was very smart.
My wife is I named after her grandmother. You named after her grandmother? Are you serious? Are you here? I'll give you
Call the meeting back in session, and we're going to move on to item 11, review and discussion of options.
Mayor, council members, this item is the next step in our pursuit of affordable housing project known as Cherry Creek at 521 South Cloverdale Boulevard. We have a couple options for the council to consider. We're asking direction on how to move forward tonight. Just a little background. The city, along with the Sonoma County Land Trust, purchased the property in 2007 for the production of low and moderate income housing. During the decline, the Great Recession, the Sonoma County Land Trust dropped out of the deal, leaving the city as the sole owner of the property. At that point, the city did enter an agreement with Cloverdale Community Outreach for the operation of a transitional housing program, which has been happening there since that time. We've gone through a few lease renewals with community outreach. Currently, we're at the last year of our 5-year lease. That doesn't mean it couldn't be extended, but the lease will expire in September of this year. Along with that process, we also have $1.9 million in what's known as unspent bond proceeds, which was acquired by the former redevelopment agency for the specific use of promoting and building and accommodating affordable housing. There's a time frame on that as well. We've gotten one extension from the state, but as it stands right now, our extension for the use of that money will expire in September of 2022, at which point the state could take the money back. So I think that all along it's been the intent to use that money on the Cherry Creek site in one way or the other. Sort of to that end, in 2017, the city hired Archaeologics, which is a design firm with architects to come up with a preliminary design and a budget. Those are both attached in your staff report. Going through this process, we've understand what the constraints on the site are, including a hefty creek setback and some large oak trees that we want to preserve. We got an understanding of what the site could accommodate. The Planning Commission did review the design concept back in November and provided some comments. Those are noted. And then the other part of the Archaeologics contract was the budget, which came in at $6.5 million. That might be a little conservative. So clearly with our 1.9 and the price today, there's a gap there. And so in order to move the project forward, we're proposing a couple of options to help fill that gap and move the project forward. Option one would be a request for proposals. The city would be seeking proposals from outside developers who are experienced in finance, construction, also the maintenance and long-term use of the property, but not only that, but also the services. We're looking for someone who can provide services or enter a contract with an agency or group that can provide long-term services to keep the project as transitional housing. So the city, in return, would be able to offer site control and our unspent bond proceeds. In our discussions with the county, we feel, and in my past experience with doing a few of these, that's a pretty attractive RFP proposal for us. It's a decent amount of money, the site control. You may have noticed in the RFP I put $1.5 million. That's obviously we have a little bit more, and it's been my experience, and the RFP is in draft form. We are certainly ready to change that to meet the council's needs, but hold back a little bit in case they come back for some money later. We don't have to do that, but that's been my experience that they typically will come back. So the RFP, really, it follows the design of Archaeologics that's been reviewed by the community and there's been input on. It would require the developer to obtain financing. We'd be looking for a developer with proven experience with projects like this, but not only the construction side, the finance side, again, the service side and the maintenance side of the project. So, the option number 2 would be that there is a possibility to rehab the existing buildings out there. We know anecdotally, we don't know firsthand exactly the condition, and Colleen may know a little bit better than us, but we know they're in need of a lot of repairs. During our discussions with Archaeologics, they did mention that it would cost about $10,000 to get a professional to assess the buildings and give us a real good scope of work on what would actually have to happen out there to make them livable and usable into the future. So again, I just want to emphasize in the RFP, that's a first draft. We have recommendations we'll listen to input on the RFP, certainly could change. There's a part in there that I know is causing a little heartache in the community, which is the navigation center. Where that came from was a discussion that city manager and I had with the county regarding the possible corner use of that site as a navigation center. The way we envisioned the navigation center was never to be for beds or any type of overnight stay. It would be more of a place where people in need, homeless people and others, could go to find out where services are, as the name implies, navigation center. There is some discussion of a navigation center being defined a different way, tied to funding perhaps, but that was never our intent. Our intent was to more do what the county has suggested to us, which was, again, what I just described. Hey, there's a family, they need housing, where can we go? There would be people staffed there to help them. It may not be a fit with what's being proposed on the rest of the property. It's in the RFP pretty loosely. It's not a requirement. It wouldn't be part of the scoring criteria. It just says the city is, interested in the idea. If you want to include that in your RFP, you can. If you don't, you won't be penalized. But again, that's open to council direction on if we want to keep that in there. But I just wanted to clarify, because I know there's a lot of discussion in the community about what that is. I don't know if David wants to add anything, but that's what I got.
Yeah, one point I wanted to share with council is that this particular property was acquired by your former redevelopment agency, and under the dissolution process that was set forth by the state, you had 5 years from when dissolution was originally signed into effect by the governor, the former governor, to initiate redevelopment or further development of the site. And it was in 2017 when, at that time, I, as your assistant city manager, brought forth a resolution to retain Archaeologics to start this design work. And it was with review by the city attorney that was considered initiation of future development. What we did also at that same time is establish that we basically provided for an additional 5 years to get this project under development. So from that time frame, we basically have until 2022 to get the project significantly underway. What you see in your packet really is a product of that planning effort that we initiated to support future development of the property. And part of that goal was to really clearly identify the site constraints that are present on the site, but also help with identifying to a potential future developer how we would envision the site developing that would support the community goals in your general plan and your zoning ordinance. And so all of that was kind of taken into consideration in coming up with a concept plan. That concept plan by no means is set in stone, but it does give someone who might look at the property in terms of a future developer a good idea of what the general plan and zoning requirements are. And I would like to say that we did partner very closely and worked very closely with Colleen Hallbroom, I know who's here tonight, and kind of trying to look at the same model of use that's been in place with the transitional housing and looking at how we could kind of expand upon that. And that's really, I think, what's reflective of the use that's there. One of the other considerations, I think, when we developed the site plan was, you know, what is it going to cost to be able to build a project? And that work obviously is what's in the packet in terms of cost estimates. And it was, you know, it's determined, as you can see from the cost figures, far exceeds what the city has to be able to build the project. With that said, it was designed with the ability for the project to be constructed in phases. So if council said, for example, you know what, we want to undertake this project ourselves and see the city kind of manage a future development construction project and affordable housing project, we could do that, but it requires significant staff commitment. And the practice that your assistant outlined is kind of what we consider a best practice in terms of developing an RFP to really solicit proposals from qualified developers. And I know we've had that discussion, for example, with Ms. Hallbrom, because she's already kind of put together a really good packet of information about a development team. And we would, you know, we've encouraged her because she was so integrally involved in this design process and what we've come together that meets the community's needs to respond to that RFP and put together a project. And I think would have a lot of support because he has that local knowledge and understanding of our community. Just to touch on what Kevin mentioned in terms of the navigation center, as you'll see in the land use plan, it's not reflected, it's not shown. I think the language, you know, in the RFP says that the city's interested in a potential partnership to establish a navigation center to help a broader section of community residents. It could be a standalone facility. The idea being that if a developer wants to, or partner wants to respond to the proposal, they could include that. It's not required. And we understand, again, that there is this concern that it would be a center where there would be heads, or excuse me, beds, and that was not envisioned, and I don't think there's really adequate space for that. But there could be a resource center, for lack of a better term, where there's information available for you know, folks that might be on the verge of homelessness or need housing assistance or just need counseling support because they may be struggling with their payments. That could be provided, and we know that there's a lot of housing organizations that provide that type of service. But by no means is that a requirement. And kind of the vision, I think, as we developed this was to, again, expand on the model of what's there now. A lot of the units, again, as you know, it was the old Faro Motel site, kind of one-bedroom units. You know, quite a bit of discussion about when we were going through this design process, do we do more three-bedroom units and support bigger families? And, you know, it all got back to that kind of cost parameter. When you start looking at building, you know, new single-family homes, it's almost more, it almost makes more economic sense to go out and buy an existing home than build a new one just because of the cost of construction. So we were trying to figure out a way we could build the most number of units that fits the zoning and contain costs. And that's, I think, what you see as the product before you. And we thought this would be a way to give guidance to a developer group that might want to come in, actually have access to that private capital, usually through tax credit financing is usually the tool, but also through other private grants or federal grants to kind of put together a package. And that's what we would hope. And what RFP identifies is what's our contribution, which is land and unspent bond proceeds. We think could be very attractive to a potential development team to be able to bring a project forward that ultimately we would enter into an agreement with, then they would build the project. And that kind of would take the burden off staff of trying to manage and develop a large construction project and put it on a third-party entity that has that professional expertise to be able to manage future construction development project, all the while addressing, you know, that there are existing residents there. So that's kind of where we're at today. there's a number of options with the RFP. You could say, gosh, we don't want to we don't want to do an RFP. We want to sole source it. You have the authority to do that. But again, we looked at it kind of from the best practice perspective, and we think this is an opportunity for all groups to really submit a great proposal. And of course, in our discussions with like Ms. Holbrook, we encourage what you put together to package that up and put that in a proposal format and respond to the RFP. And that would be something we would review with the council or at at a subcommittee level before bringing it back to council for your ultimate consideration.
Okay, great. Actually, I think at this time, since this is we've got new council members, I'm going to just let you ask more technical questions, and then I'll open it up for the audience. But just any, do you need any clarification on the packet or the project?
Question, if I may.
Go right ahead.
If the community speaks up and says we just don't want a navigation center, is that our prerogative to keep it out of the RFP?
Definitely.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's a good study, what you've done. And I also want for the record to acknowledge that this project and this proposal was organized and presented by the staff long before Councilman Turner and I came on board. So we didn't come up with this idea overnight. Nobody in the city does anything overnight because there are too many things that have to be taken into account. Correct, Council?
Over. Well, this has been in the works for a while. So
yeah, it's been in the works for a while. And I think it's wonderful to have an RFP.
Well, let's hold off on the discussion. I just wanted to.
But I read this thoroughly and I look at the proposed material.
Do you have any questions for staff? We're going to wait? Okay, great. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and open up public comment and invite Colleen to come in and speak if you're prepared to do so tonight. Give us a little more background, if you will. Everyone has to sign the book eventually, Colleen. So.
Thank you. Evening, Council, Mayor, and staff, and Chief Stewart, and our student liaison. Yeah, this is a project that we've been working on for quite a while, as David has mentioned, and Kevin. We've got a really close working relationship, and because we anticipated that this was a prospect, we've been working to find developers for, I don't know, in the 9 years I've been with the agency, I've been looking for developers that we could work with that wouldn't push us out. Because typically what happens is affordable housing developers that are doing tax credit financing expect the service providers to be what I refer to as a plug-on. So the service provider would be expected to go and chase down their own money, and that money would typically be government funding that is subject to change and the whims of the whatever climate happens to be in the mix at that particular time. We are fortunate that because of Cherry Creek Village, we're able to fund our own programs without having to go out and get any unpredictable sources of government funding. But that's because we've managed to be self-supporting through some of our housing vouchers that we have there, and we see this as that if we don't have Cherry Creek Village, pretty much our agency, it ceases to exist because we wouldn't have that benefit. But more importantly, one of my concerns, just to get off of this navigation center topic, Councilmember Turner will recall that during the Planning Commission phase, we couldn't even figure out where to put the dumpster. So I don't know how this logistically is going to be possible. I mean, we still haven't quite worked that out. But what we have done is, in anticipation, I've gone out and talked to other people who are running similar programs, Solutions for Change in San Diego. They've worked with a developer by the name of Kingdom development, and I went down and visited with them. We did due diligence. We went to a tax credit meeting over in Sacramento. I attended a tax credit conference in Las Vegas, and I just immersed myself in this process. And as a result, I located a developer who is willing to work with us as a managing partner. We would be, you know, a partner in this, and we wouldn't be a plug-on, so we wouldn't be out there chasing down our own money. As a result, we would be able to receive half of the $1.5 million in developer fees, which typically the developer keeps when they do a plug-on. Some of the developers that I'd spoken with over the last 7 years, that's what they had planned on doing, so we just kept looking. The property was not attractive to them under the circumstances where we might participate more fully in the fees. They were also wanting to build a 60-unit, 3-story, you know, type of monstrosity. So we have a project, we have a proposal, it's ready to go, it's solid, it's got everything in here you could possibly want. We would be positioned, if you do decide on the option of sole source, we would be prepared to go to TCAC, the Tax Credit Authority Commission or Committee over in Sacramento, July 1 cycle. And the time frame for this project, let me find it here, I didn't have my glasses on. Anyway, we would have about a year's leeway between when the project was completed and leased up and when we hit that deadline of September of 2022. If we go an RFP route, we're really pushing it, and I don't know all the details on that, but I would strongly advocate for going sole source on this thing so that we can go and do it. And like I said, I believe that if we get any proposals at all, because we've tried to find them from the developers, they're just not interested in that smaller footprint. Most of them won't even bother with 30 units, let alone 24. Ours is a family project. In order to go compete for tax credit without getting too deep into that, we've been advised that we have a very strong tax credit deal because of the donation from the city of the land and proceeds, bond proceeds. So we expect that we would be very successful, but in the off chance that we weren't for some reason, oh, by the way, we have $1.5 million of contingencies built into this project. So we wouldn't necessarily be coming back for more. But on the off chance that it didn't work, we would still have site control so that we could continue to run our programs, and then we could go the rehab route. That would be like the fallback in this case. So I think it makes more sense from that perspective. So that's really what I had to add.
Great. Thank you. And anyone else from the public like to have any questions or comments? Okay, well then I will, please come forward and state your name for the record.
Angela Cordova.
Oh, into the microphone, please.
Angela Cordova. I think you need to keep the Wallace House where it's at. What you're opening up is a can of worms. If you have a navigation center there, it's not an informational only building. This is open for the homeless to come with their all their belongings, their vehicles, their tents. It's basically a legalized tent city. So you could try to fabricate it any way you'd like to, but at the end of the day, that's what it is. And you need to research what truly a navigation center is. And if that site is currently being used by the Wallace House for the last 10 years, without incident, mind you, I think it needs to continue. They've been successful. I've been in Cloverdale 15 years. And I can honestly say that today was the first time that I found out from Colleen that the location on Cloverdale Boulevard was the Wallace House. And I was shocked, and she can contest to that. I was shocked that it was so well maintained, it was quiet, and there was I've never seen a police officer there. I've never seen any incidents there that you would think when you're thinking of rehab or recovery houses or however, whatever you want to define them. You would think that along with that comes a bunch of crap. Well, I've never seen that in all the years that every single day that I passed by that facility. I never ever knew. I personally thought it was just cottages that were rented out. So to know that the Wallace House has 2 locations here in Cloverdale that seem to run without incident and that have been very successful, and the community is very supportive of them, I don't understand why the city would want to open that can of worms. We can't facilitate that. We barely have law enforcement for what we have now. We barely have ambulance services for our community now. So in all honesty, having that proposal and following through with that, that construction and it goes through, let's just say, what's it gonna do for the community? That's what I'd like to know. What revenue is it gonna bring? What's it gonna bring other than an eyesore of crap out there that we're already trying to deal with the minimal that we have? So I think you really need to reconsider keeping what it is right now and maybe your options of, you said there needed to be work done or what have you, upgrade what's there now. Why ruin it? There's families currently there that are clean and sober living, mother with children, husband, wife, elderly man. There's all varieties there, but they're all working. They're all clean and sober. They get drug tested, whatever their rules and regulations are. There's not rules and regulations that are that strict when you're dealing with navigation centers or affordable housing. And the whole thing with affordable housing is there's that, last time, not this city council, so no disrespect, it's to my understanding the last time there was affordable housing in Cloverdale, nobody read the fine print, and it ended up being for farm workers only, housing for farm workers only. So where did that benefit the single moms or single dads of Cloverdale that can barely afford rent? They can't apply there. They're not migrant workers, so it leaves them out. Done. Well, the same thing with this affordable housing. What nobody's reading on the fine line is that it transitions the homeless into the affordable housing. Well, what about the community?
That's 3 minutes. Thank you. Sorry. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? Please come forward. And please speak into the microphone and say your name and address. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Molly AC, and I live downtown Cloverdale. And I came to speak about the term navigation center because I read that it was one of the city's objectives in the RFP, and if it's not truly your objective to have a navigation center, which is known in the industry as, what everyone knows it as, that you should probably revise the term or define it better in your RFP if that's the route you're going to go. Thank you.
Can you be more specific? Sorry.
So navigation centers typically mean, a place for the homeless to come and get services. And I think that if it's known to our community that the city of Cloverdale has a navigation center, that it's going to bring an influx of homelessness, and they're going to be waiting for the services that navigation centers typically provide. So if that's not what we're trying to offer, that we should probably not use that term.
Okay, great, thank you.
Patrick King, Cloverdale residents. Just talking, first off, Colleen, I can give you a big hand for all the effort she's done in the last 10 years. I remember from the very beginning, volunteering myself and my time and my crew's time on helping her with something that was impossible back then, that she created something massive for Cloverdale and a lot of residents here. The Wallace House is a godsend. Colleen's a godsend for the whole process. I just want to talk about the RFP process. It takes so much time on our city and our resources for us to go through a whole proposal process and put it out to bid and really look at it. When we have somebody who put together a proposal over the last 10 years and really put some due diligence and time, sweat equity and everything into a project that is complete, I think we should really table the RFP process and really dive deep into what she has done and put together some sort of committee to really look at what is being presented from her. There's a lot of time that's been allocated towards it. So that's just what I want to say. Instead of, because of RFP process, we all know that's going to take resources, time, and where are we at? Now we're years down the road still trying to figure out something or come up to the same to where, all the hard work she has done, that could be presented and moving forward with a need to the community as we see it today. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, I'm Greg Lands. Been here about almost 61 years, guys. And it's funny, I don't know anybody. But
you don't come to enough
I
meetings.
got to tell you, a navigation house isn't just for Cloverdale, right? If somebody needs it from Healdsburg, they can bring them here. And they can stay overnight. They can bring their dogs, they can bring their kids, and I'm not saying anything bad about the people. I'm just saying it's not something that they just come in and check in and get some advice and leave, all right? Not only that, in our profession right now, we hired about 6 homeless guys this year to give them a chance and try to help them out with Toddlands construction. About 10 o'clock, they came up and asked us if they got paid by the hour because they got enough money to go get some beer and a burger and leave, all right? We had 1 man out of the 6 that survived. You know why? He went to the Wallace house. He went to the Wallace house and he stayed there and he went under their rules. He couldn't drink, he couldn't do any drugs, he couldn't do anything. And now the man is back down south with his family, with his girlfriend, and he's doing really well. The tax base isn't going to do anything for his police department to get another police officer, right? You're not going to get any money to go get a new police officer, get a new car, because you're going to have way more calls at that navigation center. The ambulance isn't going to get any more money, right? Tom's not going to get any more money, but his services are going to be needed out there. The paramedics with our fire department will be needed out there. This is a horrible, horrible decision for our community, all right? Put your resources into this young lady's program. That's the smart way. If you guys do this navigation center, it's the detriment to our community and our kids in Cherry Creek.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward? Oh, thank you. Can we hold our applause until this meeting is finally over? Thank you. We can all applaud when the meeting's over.
Good evening, almost good night. My name is Christina Lepa Duarte, for the record again. And I just want to state my concerns and echo a lot of our community members that have investment and have spent energy. I definitely do see the concern, as I believe the council should as well when we adopt the term as a navigation center. My husband and I have done some research as far as what a navigation center is. We've also done research that it originated in San Francisco, and it's a fairly new pilot program that other cities and countries are talking about adopting. Now, the reason why I chose to uproot my family from Geyserville, since I'm a Sonoma County native, is because I wanted a small town charm. I wanted to offer my kids safety, that peace of mind knowing that they're able to walk to and from until they are legally able to drive. I also want to be able to sleep at night. Now, I've had an incident also where I've witnessed a homeless person trying to break into a car from my neighbor and into their backyard. And I made that conscious decision to actually speak up and say, hey, to try to stop it. Whereas now I'm seeing that maybe, and I shouldn't say this out loud, but for there to have been some recourse to that incident, I should have allowed him to do what he was planning to do. And that wasn't fair to my neighbors. That wasn't fair to me. And I don't want to see an increase in that. Now, I am empathetic, and I do understand that there's a housing crisis. That is an issue. And I believe that a lot of our Cloverdale residents need affordable housing. So before we start thinking about other populations that aren't Cloverdale natives, I think that we need to look at what we already have in place. The Wallace House there is checks and balances. It is a program that has worked. Colleen is passionate about what she's doing. And I true echo Angela, and I've also spoken to neighbors, precisely the automotive, the transmission automotive, and he has had no complaints of his neighbors on the south. So if he hasn't had any complaints, then that should weigh something. I too drive by that every single day to take my children to and from school, and to sports, and I haven't seen anything. In fact, one of my daughter's good friends lives there, and he is one of the top students in his class. I couldn't imagine being there if he's told that him and his family have to relocate, as well as other families that are producing. So I hope that you guys take what the community is bringing forth, our concerns, and truly give weight to that, because this is just a small fraction of what the community's input would be, especially if we incorporate the term of navigation centers. Thank you.
That was exactly 3 minutes. That was excellent. Thank you. Anyone else want to come forward?
Monique Evans, and I'll write it in a second. So thank you so much, Council, for your work on this. As we know, homelessness is a really big problem in not only our community, but in Sonoma County in general. I actually worked for a homeless center called Social Advocates for Youth. It's the only homeless center in the North Bay for young people under the age of 24. What I wanted to provide today just is an understanding that a navigation center can be a positive thing, and I'm not necessarily saying that we should have a navigation center like Santa Rosa has something similar, where there's a lot of population that comes through there. I think what I'd like to see in Sonoma or in Cloverdale is more of an opportunity for the people that we have to get the resources they need to get out of the homelessness. And I think that's what I want to say is there has to be a definition of what Cloverdale stands for and what the community needs and wants, the compassion that we need and want for our people. So there are a lot of people in Cloverdale that I've noticed in the downtown area that are not receiving any services to get out of the lifestyle that they have. And so it'd be great to see more of a collaboration with the city of Cloverdale, with the resources in Sonoma County, maybe not a navigation center, but more resources brought to fight those issues that are happening, the core issues of why people are homeless in the first place. So that's what I'd like to see, not necessarily a navigation center, but more of a collaboration with the city, with Sonoma County in general, bringing resources to fight those issues on a bigger level. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come forward? Colleen, do you want to? Yeah, absolutely.
So I just want to emphasize that we are providing a navigation center service. We do that on Tuesday mornings with the hundreds of volunteers, or not hundreds, but many volunteers of St. Vincent de Paul at St. Peter's Church. Reach for Home is there with their case managers. Jacqueline from the clinic, who's already starting the process of whole person care, which there's going to be a navigation center at the new wellness center as well. And those two locations will be blended into one so as to take advantage of the whole person care funding. So we're doing it, and the Wallace House has always done it. It's just that we previously had done it at the Wallace House itself, but it kind of grew too big, and now we've worked in partnership with St. Vincent de Paul and their crew. Chris Brocade, who is in here, they go out into camps, they bring garbage bags. I mean, we have everybody there, Catholic Charities, their coordinated intake, that's where we do coordinated intake. So that service is happening. This would be a duplication of services if we have a navigation center. And if it's just an office with those people that are already across the street at St. Vincent de Paul or at the clinic, it's going to get really confusing. The other thing I was going to mention very quickly is that I don't know if anybody saw it in the newspaper today, but Healdsburg is opening a navigation center. And they're going to be using $500,000 of HEAP funding to do that. So that will be more central to northern Sonoma County and service the broader area, which would be Windsor, Geyserville, Healdsburg, Cloverdale, rather than it having be remote, really, and not centrally located. So I just wanted to mention that. We are doing the services. We've gotten a lot of people off the streets, even though it may not look like it, because we're getting more in. And my point was that we don't want to encourage more people up here because we can't handle the ones that we have right now.
Great, thank you. Okay, anyone else from the public? Great. Don't be shy.
Shirley Davis. I have a community health worker certificate, and I also participated in the program in developing it. Transitioning into, I've done volunteer work now since I retired, but 211, which if you're not familiar, is a place you can call, and you can get all kinds of resources that we have in Sonoma County. And now I'm currently working for Season of Sharing, and I see applications, people who live in a car, and now they've got their Section 8 voucher, and I can finally live someplace that has a roof, 4 walls, and a kitchenette. This, I don't know, you can call it a navigation center, whatever. It's actually full service. Reach for a Home does that. They don't just say, like the food bank, oh, you need food, here's food. That's it, that's all you get. But some of these other nonprofits provide full service, like you're living in your car, let's see what we can do. Where can we get you to where there's safe parking? Where can we get you to? You can get your Section 8 voucher. I can help you with that. It's a full service center, and it's not a place where people hang out and sleep and drink and everything else. It's navigating them, navigating through the system to help them kind of lift themselves up a little bit more and have a more decent life. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Staff, mayor, councilman. My name is Chad Acey. I'm a local resident on 4th Street. I've actually worked in homelessness for multiple years. I worked for the Sonoma County Community Development Commission. I was the homelessness coordinator, the special programs coordinator, and the family self-sufficiency coordinator. In 2017, we had a housing summit for all, and in that housing summit for all, the keynote speaker spoke about the aesthetics of developing homes that could get people out of the cycle and off of homelessness together. So it's important to stick to a specific style of development that you're looking at. And with the navigation center built into that, you're blending those uses, which will attract people to come for resources that we already have in our libraries, that we already have at the Wallace House and other locations. So it's important to know that you will draw in people from outside of the community to that location. And in doing so, you have to set up parameters for parking encampments, because right now, those two items are very difficult to remove once they've been established. Currently, we've been fighting an encampment for over, it's like 7 years. It's previous to my time at the Community Development Commission when I was there, and that encampment in Roseland has been very difficult to remove. And so if it starts, it's very difficult to remedy, and it's important to set those parameters in there. It's important to set that up in the RFP immediately. And I also agree with, if you have a very stable professional plan, that the RFP process will take a hefty amount of time and will be difficult to accomplish before 2022. I am working on a project as well right now in Santa Rosa, and I know it's very difficult to meet that timeline with public funding. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, city staff, chief. So I'm sure that I don't need to repeat a lot of what Colleen has said. I think we're all very familiar with the Wallace House and the services they provide. Some of you may also be familiar with the St. Peter's Church. They too provide those services. For me, this is really two separate issues. It's unfortunate that we are not completely clear on what a navigation center is or is supposed to be. However, this community is absolutely right in that if you have somebody who has nothing and now believes that I have a safe spot to sit for a minute, you're going to have a difficult time moving them on. Part of our issue here in Cloverdale is going to continue to be a problem. I think right away we need to move on Wallace House and their RFP, and we need to get them going immediately. I think Colleen has been clear about, I've immersed myself in it for the last 10 years. I know the answers. I have everything that you need. I think we need to do that right away. Second to that, and Mayor Bagby, I'm looking forward to you as our chair on the subcommittee for this issue. We really need to come up with some very small, simple solutions, because the portion of the homeless population that is making all of us so uncomfortable, I don't see us really addressing anytime soon. The trash, the mess. We have homeless people sleeping in the breezeway here at the Performing Arts Center. And the biggest issue when I meet with the board of this Performing Arts Center is not that there's a lack of compassion for these people and needing a place to sleep. It's the mess that they bring. And when I speak to them about it, their answer is very simple. Where else do you want me to use the restroom? We do not have a public restroom that's readily available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in Cloverdale. So part of the problem for me being on the river is when I got to relieve myself, I do it wherever the hell I want. That's an issue. It's an issue at the post office. It's an issue at the barber shop. It's an issue all over town. And if it's not the restroom, it's the trash. I mean, you're talking about serious issues with some of these folks. Not only mental issues, but substance abuse issues. And a lot of these folks, when you talk to them, will be very honest with you. No, I'm not ready to stop using. I'm quite content right where I'm at. When are you going to bring me my free burrito? Where's my lunch? What can you do to allow me to get through today until I can get another $5 bag of methamphetamine? That is very real with the homeless population that we have now residing on our river. There's a very different thing here between what the Wallace House offers in respect to services and to the community that they're trying to get into a better place, and those that may be more inclined to go to a navigation center. This particular property...
Mr. Bavay, that's 3 minutes.
I'm sorry, just one last thing.
If you could just wrap it up,
of course,
that would be great. Okay.
It's the location. This piece of property, and I'm not a not in my backyard kind of guy, but I can understand how people living there would say, whoa, what are we thinking here? This is a terrible spot for something like that, out of respect to the neighbors.
Great, thank you. Great, okay. Anyone else from the public? Okay, not seeing anybody. I'm going to bring it back to the council. And would you like to start, Mr. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sean, real quick, you said this is a terrible spot. For what?
For the navigation center.
Oh.
For Wallace House, it's incredible.
Thank you.
Just the navigation center.
Thank you.
Great, thanks for clarifying.
You know, Angela and Mo, thank you very much for your kind words about Colleen, and she does a wonderful job there. She runs a tight ship, and I really want to see her stay in charge. So with that being said, I do not want to see the city lose control over that property. You know, I want to make sure that it doesn't change later into some type of a homeless center. I think I think the reference to a navigation center does not need to be put in the RFP if we go that route. I think it does bring up things that, it means something different to everyone. And I could see where once somebody comes up, like Sean said, to get some information and they get a little comfortable sitting outside, chances are they're not going to be moving right along. I would like to see us sole source this. Has staff looked at the plan that Colleen has? Have we looked at it at this point?
Staff has not evaluated the document that Ms. Holbrook has submitted. The Kingdom Development, a religious affiliated group from Southern California, has provided various documents, but at the time it was submitted was really prior to this effort and was kind of premature for us to take a look at that until we received direction from council on how you'd like to proceed with the project.
Well, what I would like to see, and of course I'm only one opinion, I would like to see us maybe take a 3-month break from going out on an RFP. Let's take a look at what Colleen has at this point. And if it fits and we're comfortable with it and we could put it together, I'd like to see us go that way. I don't want to see the I don't want to see the RFP, like I said, contain anything pertaining to a navigation center. The medical center, when they get up and running, they have plans to do some county outreach programs there. So I think that's going to be taken care of. And like Colleen said, St. Pete's Church has that every Tuesday. So people can find where they need to go to get help. But I don't want to see CCOC lose control of that property. They do a good job for us, and I really want to see them be a partner. That's my recommendation.
Absolutely no applause, please. We're not ready to make a decision or to vote on this, and we actually have some important information from from Susie. So you go ahead and give us more information.
I will defer to legal counsel, but we're dealing.
Microphone.
I'll defer to legal, but we're dealing with bond funds, and so we have to be extremely careful about how we, at a minimum, would have to do competitive bidding.
Okay. Actually, Kate, can you? I'm sure you have something to comment on.
Well, we have not looked in detail at that, but I think you are correct in that you have to at least put it out. If we're going to be able to use that bond funding in the way that we want to, it comes with restrictions. There might, the nature of an organization being tied with religious affiliations might also impact using bond funds. We haven't looked at that in detail either, though, because we've been waiting for council direction to see what the next step is.
But they could submit an RFP
They
if we
could
do go
certainly
that
submit
way. If
to,
we can't.
yes,
They-
and it,
Okay.
there's, if the council directs it to be a quick RFP process, that's also a possibility.
Okay. Councilmember, did you have a?
Yes, I do. I don't see why CCOC cannot be part of an RFP. She could probably, well, and I'm saying she, but it should be the entity, could be part of a proposal and be considered. I'm very concerned about the money. We don't want to give it back to the state. We need to keep that money in Cloverdale. Also, we need to look at the quality of construction and facilities at this point and what is the enduring life of those facilities, the infrastructure, and also how can we maximize the space available at Cherry Creek. Those are my concerns.
I'll make it brief. No sense in repeating a lot of information that's already been said. We have an entity that's been operating in Cloverdale for the last 10 years, and from every testimony that's been presented this evening, they've been operating successfully for the last 10 years. Colleen seems to get it. She needed to go find an option to survive. I do not want to remove that option away from her. I want to see a way to move forward in which CCOC can be a part and a fair applicant in the process to where we can keep these services in Cloverdale the way they are, as long as, with our legal counsel, we find that we navigate that road to the most efficient use of the money whilst keeping the community's concerns at the forefront. I believe that is our purpose on this matter.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to say that I have to concur with what I think I'm hearing from my council members. I want to, my preference would be to see CCOC move forward with the project, but if they have to be part of the competitive bidding process in order for us to be able to use those funds, that may be where we need to go. So I guess I would ask staff, do we need to maybe send this to a subcommittee for further research and analysis as to figure out the best way forward? Because I'm having a sense that the council wants to work with, continue to work with CCOC, but we also want to be able to use the money, and which means that we would have to engage in a competitive RFP. So what would you suggest?
So there's when you say competitive bidding, there's usually two different parts to that. There's RFP for proposals and services and development, and then when it comes to the actual construction, are you referring to construction having to go out to competitive bid, or the project on the entire thing?
I'm just concerned about spending bond proceeds correctly. And I just wanted to put that out there, that typically when you go to spend the bond proceeds, you have to do.
Have shown that it was.
Competitive bidding of maybe even just getting 3 bids, I don't know. But
Yeah. So we can confirm that.
It sounds like we need some more
pretty soon.
information.
Like, yeah, I think I would agree, but if council's direction is to go that route and it's confirmed, staff could come back and report that back, very quickly.
Go ahead, Councilmember Cruz.
Yes, I don't think we could just lay on it for 3 months.
Yeah.
Because it's not within the guidelines for bond money.
So, you want to clarify? Okay, Councilmember, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to see us give direction to staff to sole source it if we can. If we can't, then it goes out in an RFP without the navigation component.
Okay. It often depends on the exact bond, so we'd have to go through the bond language.
Mayor, Council, if I can, just at this point in the discussion, still reflect back on the RFP, and I clearly hear Council's direction is they're not interested in the RFP unless we're otherwise obligated to do it because of the nature of the unspent bond proceeds that we're proposing to be used towards funding this project. I did receive input from legal counsel, from Jose, that we could sole source it if the council so decided, but there wasn't specifically asked the question about the unspent bond proceeds. So I think we can sole source it. We may just need to determine whether unspent bond proceeds can be considered as part of funding the project. And I think, as like Ms. Holbrook indicated, they could live without that funding because they have that built into their project. With that said, and we can look into that, and if it's available, we obviously want to plug it in to help pro forma. I think it's nonetheless key to look back at the RFP because there are some guidelines that we would recommend that the council follow that has been a model that's been set forth for other properties within the city of Cloverdale, primarily that council would consider an exclusive negotiating agreement with CCOC, that exclusive negotiating agreement would spell out the terms by which they would acquire and build the project. And that's similar to what we're doing with the Times Square, for example, and ultimately require and propose a development agreement that's tied to that exclusive negotiating agreement, again, to ensure that the council gets what they want there in terms of future development of the site and future management of the site, so that those the housing units that I think we really desire and we want to see built there are indeed built there if we put funding towards the project, along with the necessary and requisite improvements, including the frontage, which we think is so key to making that an attractive, future affordable housing site. So I think we can proceed with what I hear council saying, work with CCOC to sole source this, but I guess staff's recommendation is to consider those other elements that are so key to make a successful property transaction happen, and make sure that the taxpayers and the community understand clearly what we're getting in terms of a development project for what we're contributing towards the project.
Go ahead. Thank you. I wanted to clarify, can everybody hear me okay here? I feel like I've dropped out. Maybe my battery died. It's been a little bit of a long meeting, so we can appreciate technology. Sometimes might have the battery die a little bit. Am I?
Use the other one.
Okay. I've never been quiet, guys. I'm telling you, I've never been quiet. I just wanted to ask one clarifying question. Vice Mayor Wolter, I just want confirmation. This is not meant to be argumentative at all. You made a comment that you wanted to see it go down the CCOC sole sourcing route, and if not, then to utilize the RFP. What I'd like to clarify is, do we have the option, if the money can't be used for the sole sourcing route, to then bring it back to council for further direction rather than providing language that suggests route A or B?
Well, we could do that, but it is route A or B.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's, and while I have the mic, Kate, I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot. I'm not sure that everybody understands where the the bond proceeds come into this, that those tax dollars are already spoken for because they're indebted with the bonds. Could you kind of explain how that works?
I think I would defer to the finance director on that, actually.
Thank you.
I have not read the bonds.
Okay, so I'm going to do my best to answer this question because it's complicated. The bond proceeds are unspent bond proceeds that we are holding currently, and they, when we refunded our last bond, there were specific requirements to how we could spend those funds. And I don't know every detail of it. I just know that there are requirements.
Okay.
And I just wanted to stop before we got too far down the road.
Thank
Thank you.
Any more comments? No? Okay. So we provided more than enough guidance to staff on this item?
Yeah, I did want to note that the city staff did receive interest from other developers. It will preclude them from, based on council direction, from responding to the RFP. And that may be something that, you know, in the future receive feedback, but I think it's clear from the community input and the direction to council to really work directly with CCOC on a future development proposal that would be subject to an agreement that needs to come back to council.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, yes. Is there a way, council, that we could have a development agreement?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the public needs to understand that too, that even, let's say that this goes to bid and there's another entity, it could be a development agreement requirement that they work with CCOC also. Now, well, I don't know if that could be, but I mean, that would be something I would contemplate. However, I also, this is another point, I'm thinking of funds that would come from, let's say, Housing First. Are we going to be precluded from using those funds if the requirements that Wallace House has don't agree with what Housing First establishes?
Colleen, do you want to take that, or and actually that would?
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, but they don't
well,
require clean and sober living.
let's let Colleen answer the question.
Well, so as it relates to Housing First, so that's, you can't impose sobriety requirements or program requirements. So you get them inside and that's it. They're basically a tenant. And they would be protected by all the same landlord-tenant laws that anybody would. So, but Housing First, if you go for funding for Housing First, it's very cyclical and it's competitive and it's unpredictable. So for example, right now if you go for ESG funding from the state, they're requiring Housing First mandate. But it's short-term in nature. So then you have to go, a Wallace House would have to go back and hope that we are competitive. Right now the funding cycle is happening in Sonoma County. They're going, people are coming in and putting together applications. Housing First is going to be prioritized. That's a 1 to 3 year funding cycle. At the end of that 1 or 3 years, you got to go back again. So our model is sustainable and predictable because it isn't dependent on all of that. Now we do have some Housing First clients who are on medical opiates, but they're monitored and they don't abuse them and their behaviors are consistent with, you know, safe and quiet enjoyment for the other neighbors and the other clients. So there's a way to do it. It's just when you overwhelm a system or an agency or a city or all the services and police, law enforcement, medical, that's when it becomes a problem. And when you do it that way, you have to have an enormous amount of money. We estimated it probably would be anywhere from a minimum to do it on bare bones of $500,000 just to monitor opioid overdose, to hire clinical staff to administer Narcan. So, and sometimes with fentanyl, you got to do it twice. I mean, you have to have people that know how to do that. That all comes into play with Housing First.
But Housing First is supposed to also guarantee services.
No. You have to guarantee services if you go for the money. Housing First requires that you provide the services, but you can't mandate this. You can't require the clients to participate if they don't want to.
Okay, so let's keep it on the specific project. I think that the staff has direction. So what is the next step? How are, just bring it back to council, or will you?
I think we'll consult further with council to see if we can sole source.
Yeah.
If that's the,
And
if that's the green light, then are we gonna come back to council to let you know that? I think
That's only 2 weeks, so that should be enough time. And if we bring this to the next council meeting, is there room on that agenda?
We can, staff
make
can
it work.
make
Make it
appropriate
work.
room.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll make room. If we do have to go the RFP, just a clarification, if we do end up doing an RFP, I hear that we're going to eliminate all references to a navigation center. Is that consensus?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Great,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but mostly finding out about that bond question, I think, is the it's A or B. So okay.
May I ask a question about
Sure.
that? So if we were to just use the bond proceeds for the construction phase, would that satisfy this requirement?
I don't think we know the answer. We have to research
very
it.
complicated.
Well, I'm not asking you to answer it. I'm just bringing it up. I'm raising it because we could, in the course of the project, would obviously go out to bid to do the construction. So that money could be allocated for the construction phase as opposed to general funds for the project.
Yeah, great. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay, so we'll look at revisiting this at the next meeting. We'll do some research and hopefully we'll be able to conclude it then. Great. Okay, so we will be moving on to our next item, for which I need my glasses. Oh, and actually, we need to go find Councilmember Brigham.
Oh, yeah, I'll go get her.
Oh, great.
Hey.
Oh, great. Okay.
Hey, come on down, huh?
There we go. So this is item 12, discussion of possible action to provide direction on appointments to the city selection committee. So City Manager Kelley.
Okay, Mayor, council members, on January 31st of this month, the Sonoma County City Selection Committee, which is part of your Mayor and Council Members Association, is going to meet. And as part of that meeting, the representatives for each of the cities, which is your mayor, and if your mayor is not present, your vice mayor, will make various appointments to specific county-wide boards and commissions that have open positions during this calendar year. There are a number of pending appointments, both to City Selection Committee as well as various boards of directors. Those are outlined in your packet. There are technically 4 City Selection Committee assignments and 4 Board of Directors positions. Of the 4 Board of Director positions, there are 2 appointments, 2 for the Open Space District, as well as 2 positions with the SMART, which would also serve on the Sonoma County Transportation Authority Board of Directors. The letters of interest that were received are in your packet. There were 13 total, 1 each for the City Selection Committee appointments, and 9 for the 4 Board of Directors positions, with the majority of those coming in for the SMART SCTA position. What staff is recommending is that you consider those letters of interest and make a recommendation to your mayor on who the vote should be for at the City Selection Committee that will be held on January 31st. The one solid recommendation that staff has to make is in regards to one of 2 positions on the SMART SCTA board. Previously, there was a member of council that served in that position, former Vice Mayor Russell, and staff does recommend that you consider recommending Mayor Bagby to that as one of your 2 board appointments for that position, which would enable Bagby to make a vote for herself at the City Selection Committee meeting on the 31st. One of the reasons for that strong recommendation, at least on that particular board, is because Mayor Bagby is a council member, obviously, and secondarily, we believe it's in the best interest of Cloverdale to have our mayor and council member be represented on those regional boards. So without further ado, our recommendation is to just walk through quickly both the City Select Committee recommendations, which is one each. So you may be able to handle those in one motion, and then move on to the Board of Directors recommendations.
Great. I think we'll start with, has everyone had a chance to review the letters, and is there any, okay, yeah, let's move along. So on the first, Bay Area Air Quality Management District, I believe the only applicant is Teresa Barrett. Is everyone?
She's good.
Okay.
Works for me.
All right. We don't need a vote on this. We can just take a voice.
You can give direction to the mayor as to how you recommend that she vote at the mayor.
I think I've gotten direction from the mayor, so everyone's supporting Teresa Barrett. Okay. Moving on to Golden Gate Bridge, the only applicant is Gina Belforte.
Okay.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. And item 3, Metropolitan Transportation Commission. Jake?
Jake seems to like that.
Okay. Anyone? All right. And no support or any?
There's nobody else.
There's nobody else? Okay.
Yep.
All right, check. And this sounds fascinating. Remote Access Network Board, Gina Belforte.
Sure.
Okay. And then City Selection Committee.
I thought that was Pam.
I think
No,
that's-
that was Pam.
Oh, no,
Stafford.
that's Gina. Which one? Sorry, Remote Access?
Yeah.
Remote access,
Pam
yes.
Stafford.
Mine says Gina. Was there an update? My
No,
page.
it's vacated by Pam.
Oh,
Stafford.
vacated.
Oh, okay.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, the applicant, the letter received is from Gina. Okay.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay, and they're both
Yep.
from Murder Park.
And you're
so-
back in the room.
And we're back. Okay, so City Selection Committee,
And that's predetermined by.
that's predetermined, so we're gonna check that off. And then Board of Directors.
Julie Combs.
ABAG, okay, letters received from Julie, again, there's one applicant.
That's it then.
All right. Speak Up or Forever Hold Your Peace.
Julie's
Okay.
fine.
North Bay Division, League of Cities, California alternate.
We don't vote on that.
We don't vote on that. We're going to cross that off. Thank you. That's not us. So Sonoma County Ag and Preservation Open Space. So two spaces open, 2 applicants, Leah Gold and Nisa Hinton.
Yep.
Everybody,
I'm good with that.
okay?
It's 2, right?
It's 2 and 2.
2 and
okay.
2, yeah.
Yep. And then Smart SCTA. So this is where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
Who would you like to support? Staff wants to support me, but they don't have a vote, so.
Am I allowed,
Please, go ahead. There are 2 spots available, so you can give me a 1, a 2, and a 3. I mean, it'll get a little complicated, but I think
well,
we can.
to just keep it real short, Mayor Bagby, I'd like to recommend you seat this particular board. I would support you.
Okay, thank you. And then there's a second seat, so who do you prefer for the second seat?
I'd like to recommend Jake McKenzie. He's been on that since its inception.
Okay.
And he's got a lot of knowledge. He's a strong supporter of Cloverdale. Madam Mayor, the other letters that I've read, they all talk about, how SMART should run all the way to Cloverdale, but none of them are really pounding on the desk. And even the gentleman from Hillsburg, it's Windsor, Hillsburg, and Cloverdale, per usual.
Okay.
If there's money, we'll have the train, but I think that's your pitch too, and I plan on being at the board meeting.
Okay.
And I am going to speak up for you because we need representation at the end of the line.
I agree.
Not in the middle.
I agree.
Once they get it to Windsor, once they get it to Hillsburg, they could care less.
And if I could comment, I think we've all seen the letters with the rhetoric that suggest even now SMART needs to transition from a startup into a full service, and we now need to build our infrastructure to it. And I find that language to be concerning if we as a community want to ensure that train comes all the way up here. So I support what's being considered here.
So are you voting for Jake, or are you voting for anybody else?
Jake from Roanoke Park sounds like a good recommendation.
I'm just keeping track, and I know staff's doing the same thing. I just want to know. Okay, okay.
Jake and Bagby.
Okay. And what about you, Marianne? How do you feel about this?
No, I think that's good. I'm okay with Jake. The only letter I read that was sort of interesting to me, but I don't know Joe from Healdsburg that well. So I would trust Jake probably more.
Okay.
But that's just because I don't know the other guy.
Okay, well then I think I have my direction. So, all right.
And Madam Mayor, if we can give you some further direction?
Yes, can I stop you?
Well, you know, in the past, we've always given the mayor the authority to change the vote if for any particular reason, for example, if Teresa or Gina decided they wanted to withdraw and there was somebody else there. When there's only one selection like that, we've always in the past given the mayor the authority to act in the best interest of Cloverdale.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that my fellow council members are on board with that we give Melanie the latitude to change the vote based on any unforeseen circumstances that develop.
And you'll be there to make sure I do that.
Well,
So there.
Yeah, we got the checks and balances are here,
There
and
we
I
go.
absolutely
I'll be there.
support that.
I think
Great.
That's a good idea.
Okay, okay, great. Yeah, there might be a little horse trading going on at Smart Board is pretty hot.
There will be.
There may be, so, and yeah, there might be some other people interested in that MTC seat, you never know, so, okay, great, well then that's that, I think we have our direction, and we'll move on to item number 13.
Good evening again, Mayor, council
Should I
members.
ask, does anybody need another break, or are we doing okay? We're in the home stretch, so, okay, good, we're gonna soldier on then.
We'll be quick, Mayor.
Great.
The item before you tonight is to consider authorizing a letter of support for what's referred to as the Mendocino County Inland Water and Power Commission for their indicative proposal to Pacific Gas and Electric. Quick background, PG&E is trying to divest themselves of the Potter Valley project. The Potter Valley project, located north of us, does provide for an interbasin transfer of water to the ultimately to Lake Mendocino and then into the Russian River water system, which helps provide for water supply for northern Sonoma County to the point where you hit Dry Creek influence through Lake Sonoma. There's considerable concern that through both the FERC relicensing project and the divestiture from PG&E that the Potter Valley project could be controlled by interests that don't have our interests in mind. The Mendocino County Inland Water and Power Commission has been established to help continue bringing water through Potter Valley and into Lake Mendocino and through the Russian River water system, and has been a participant in the Russian River Watershed Association, which Mayor Bagby and your city engineer have been participating in. And what they're asking for is a letter of support for their indicative proposal. At this particular time, those proposals have not been subject to public disclosure, but this letter of support would give our support for them during that proposal process with PG&E. And so we're just seeking, as staff, your authorization if you support having staff write a letter of support for their proposal by review by PG&E. There's a lot more to come on this. We anticipate at some point inviting the commission to come in and actually do a presentation on the project when the time is right. But there's a lot of developments, and staff didn't see any harm in submitting a letter of support, but we wanted to make sure council would support that concept.
Great, thank you. You have any questions or?
No, I think it's our only option.
Yes, okay. All right. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I'll support the letter, but I'm not sure it's our only option. At some point, we need to discuss our water rights in the river, and they will be impeding those water rights that we're entitled to. So.
Great. Who's they? Sorry, can you clarify?
Anything that stops the flow down the Russian River is impeding our rights.
Sure. Okay.
It's going to be a heck of a loss.
Yeah. So, I've gotten to know Janet, Polly, and their group through Russian River Watershed and going to the upper Russian River Watershed meetings. And we'll see with the impending PG&E bankruptcy if that is going to throw a monkey wrench into it or not. But they have, I think that they've done as good a job as they possibly can to, in the JPA, to position themselves to be in the running, especially if PG&E is trying to curry favor with folks. It may be to their PR advantage to make sure that the management of that project does stay with a local entity rather than a private investor. So I believe that there's consensus for at least support for the letter for their application. Does that sound good? Okay, so do you have all the direction you need? Great, okay. And then we will move on to item, oh my gosh, subcommittee items. Woohoo, we're on the home stretch. All right, and actually, at this time, can we go ahead and take the student liaison's report so that if she wants to skedaddle, she can.
Thank you so much. Okay, it's short because it's like the first month of the semester right now. All I really have to say is that at the Citrus Fair, the Interact Club and the Key Club will both have exhibits and boards at the Citrus Fair, so definitely watch out for those. And then I'm pretty sure that there were 3 girls from Cloverdale going out for the Queen pageant, and then 1 girl who goes to Windsor, so that'll be fun too. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm sorry you had to wait around just for that. Okay, we'll move on to subcommittee reports, and the airport, the airport subcommittee will be meeting February 5th. And then Finance, Administration, and Police will be meeting, is this right?
This is one of the meeting dates that
was one of the meeting dates that didn't quite work.
Updated in the new schedule, and the meeting date was changed to, just for this one meeting, January 31st at 10:30. So it's a special meeting. After that, they'll resume to be the 4th Thursday of the month.
Great. So then we have Planning and Community Development.
And we will be meeting on February 19th.
Okay. Public Works.
We will be meeting on January 29th, 3:30 p.m. City Hall. Hope y'all can make it.
Joint City Fire District.
That one is changed to Public Works.
Oh, Public Works.
He said the correct date.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I said the updated date.
Oh, the updated.
January 29th.
I'm working.
Because it was originally scheduled for today to clarify Linda's comment, and we were able to change it.
Very good.
3:30.
I'm working on an old copy, so sorry. Oh, can you repeat that, Jason?
Absolutely. Are you referring to the Public Works Subcommittee, Mr. Cox? Yes. Okay. The Public Works Subcommittee is going to meet January the 29th at 3:30 p.m. What I want to make clear here is after the January 29th meeting, it will be held at 4 p.m. thereafter. Yeah.
But just that one is, okay, great. Then we have Fire District.
February 11th, 5:30.
Okay, and School District.
March 18th.
Great.
5 o'clock.
So the council reports, does anybody have a verbal report?
Well, Will went to the academy in Sacramento.
New mayors and council members.
New mayors and council members. And I went to all the meetings.
Even though you were a little sick.
Yes.
Yes.
Very
well done.
tired at the end of the day. And see, one more thing. I can remember right now. I didn't write it down.
Well, I do usually submit them in writing, and I was too ill to get everything done, and so I'm actually going to submit mine in writing at the next council meeting. So, Mayor, Vice Mayor?
Thank you.
Okay, report.
I went to the new mayors and council members. I also received correspondence from one of our applicants for the RFP process that was enclosed within the agenda. And that ought to do it for these last 2 weeks.
Great.
I also have one more thing. I was a guest speaker at the Women's March in Santa Rosa.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's a big day. All right, so legislative report. Taking it. City manager, city attorney.
The only thing I might just like to report on, as mentioned by our student liaison, the Citrus Fair parade is planned for Saturday, February 16th at 11 a.m. in downtown Cloverdale. And I will be sending out a calendar to the council to ascertain whether you'd like to participate in the city booth that we will be hosting at your Citrus Fair. Some of the materials that we'd like to be able to distribute to attendees came in today, and we look forward to being able to provide those materials as part of our booth activities, and some of which was placed in your, that our city engineer, I believe, placed some of those items in your mailboxes at City Hall.
Great.
One other thing I wanted to mention, our booth will also be shared with our RWA, Russian River Watershed Association, so we can earn credits for our stormwater outreach.
Good. Excellent. And they might have some good swag that they'll share with us too.
Oh, Madam Mayor, I have one more announcement. I am going to be the other MC for the parade. I will be announcing all the participants in the parade in Spanish.
Ooh, congratulations. Very nice. Great. All right, anything else? Any other announcements or anything? Well, at this time, I would like to thank staff for all of their hard work, and I would especially like to thank Kate Cook, who is with us on this is her last night with us, and I just wanted to give a special shout out and thank you. I probably should have done this during the cannabis section because your fan club was all here, but I just wanted to give the other council members an opportunity to if they have any remarks or anything that they would like to say, or our city manager.
Oh, well, thank you for that opportunity, Mayor. I want to say it's been truly a pleasure to work with Ms. Cook, and I know she'll be doing great things, and hopefully we'll see that bullet train up and running with her involvement and legal expertise that she'll be bringing to the High-Speed Rail Authority. Obviously, as we talked about tonight, the cannabis ordinance, Kate really had the opportunity to oversee that whole process. And we really want to thank her for all the hard work that she put in on that, and the discussions we've had. I've really appreciated the collaboration, but I hope your drive is much shorter and you get to spend a little more time with your child and your family.
Great. Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor?
Well, the only thing I could say, Kate, is thank you for guiding us through the cannabis process, and we're not done yet. You know, that is a moving target, but thank you for your guidance, and I know Jose said he'll be in touch with you in the future.
Anybody else? Yeah.
So I have to tell just a quick little funny story, or at least I find it funny, so I'll leave the rest of that up to you guys. But, election results weren't even finalized yet, and Jose said maybe we should have a one-on-one just in case this comes to fruition. And we sat in the conference room, and I spent the first 2 minutes raving about how you conducted yourself through some of the more challenging meetings that I witnessed. And it wasn't maybe 2 or 3 weeks later that I'm having a one-on-one with David, and Jose comes on the phone, and the dude didn't even want to tell me that you were leaving because I had just spent the previous meeting raving about you. So what I want to say is I'm sorry it was so short-lived. I've really enjoyed what I witnessed from the audience. The 2 meetings that I've been able to participate where you did join us, you're going to be missed.
Thank you.
And so I hope your next endeavors are everything you hoped they would be and more.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to serve this council, prior council and this council. You guys are, I would say, a shining example of sort of democracy in action and conducting yourselves in a civil way, which isn't always the case these days, and I really appreciate it. It's been a great experience. So I will miss you, but I'm in Sonoma County a lot, so I'll swing by.
It's been a pleasure, Kate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You
And
too.
good luck on the bullet train. That's very
I'll
exciting.
need it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to do fine.
Yeah. No, you're a key member of our team, and you will really be missed. So thank you for everything that you've done and supporting our full-time staff. You just fit right in and give us such great advice and are so even and so fair and so ethical. It's just you're doing your best to fix the reputation of most attorneys. So keep on doing it. You're rehabilitating their reputation.
I want to say thank you for being so welcoming.
Yes, absolutely. Great. Well, if there. Yes. Now they could have applauded, so there you are. Well, on that note, we will adjourn to a regular meeting of the Cloverdale City Council, Cloverdale Community Development Successor Agency, Wednesday, February 12th.
13th.
13th. This is all wrong. Thank you. It says 12. I'm not working with the revised copy, so.